going to start the legislation that is in Public Safety Committee. Today's November 4th. And there's 4 pieces of legislation that it's in there now. And hopefully we can get some of these taken care of tonight. We'll have a discussion on all 4. And hopefully we can get some of these moved out of the committee, or if not, we'll keep them in committee. The first one is what I'd like to cover is resolution number 11, enforcement of New York State laws. This was sponsored by Council members Williamson and Beatrice. And we went over this a couple of meetings ago, and we said that we wanted to maybe take a better look at it. And my opinion, and I don't know what your opinion is, but my opinion is maybe we can cut it down a little bit and get right to the point. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman Williamson, I think what we want to accomplish here is if someone is resisting arrest, that maybe the consequences will be a little bit more severe. And we are going to reach out to New York State legislator, the governor, and hopefully just send them something in writing, such as this piece of legislation, that we will be in favor, or whoever wants to be in favor, of maybe increasing the fines or the penalty for resisting arrest. Am I right in saying that?
Yes. May I make a recommendation, Chair?
Yes.
May we hit the other one
The
first?
floor is open for discussion. Go ahead.
Well, no, he's working on something right now with that.
Okay.
Can we hit the other one first?
Okay. Okay, we're going to put this on hold. And let's move next to Police Transparency and Accountability Act of 2020. This would be ordinance number 11. That was introduced 6/17/20. It's been in our committee here. Basically, whereas New York State legislature has recently voted to repeal the New York State Civil Rights Law, Section 50A, whereas the public has reasonable right to know how those who are sworn to serve and protect them are performing in their assigned roles. And whereas in a democracy, transparency of governmental activities is fundamental. Therefore, be it ordained that the City of Utica Police Department shall publicize and make easily accessible to the public, such as but not limited to posting on their department website all personnel records used to evaluate performance toward continued employment of any officer employed by the department. Now, it says police transparency. I believe this also has to be changed to police and fire department, I would imagine. That is for people who are in public safety. So we might want to tweak that a little bit. Now, obviously, the administration has taken action on this already, and if you do go on the website, the City of Utica website, you could look at some of the past performances of our officers, and you can read their records. There's some of them are 100 pages long. You can go through each one if you'd like. I did fiddle on through it, some of the officers, just to check on, see what it looked like, and it does pretty much give you every tidbit of what they did throughout their career. If there was an incident, you'll be able to read it and you can make your own decision. And they'll give you a reason, or they'll tell you what they did to correct the problem, if there was a problem. Does anybody have a problem with this piece of legislation? I think it's old. I think we've already enacted it.
I'd like to speak to it.
What's that?
Yeah, so I'd like to speak to it when you're
ready. Go ahead.
So, you're right, of course, that we're in fact doing it. I commend the administration for going ahead and doing this. But of course, that doesn't preclude making it a law that we do this. We don't want it to be the case that the administration could, at some future date, or some future administration could simply decide not to do this. This ordinance will make it, require that this be done. So I'm not interested in rescinding this. I think that this is still a good idea. I would like some suggestions as to whether we want to say police and firefighter or public safety officer, and I'd be open to some suggestions about that.
I just got one question on this. I'm sorry, was I next?
You go ahead. She asked the question.
Oh, okay.
That's a great question. I thought it does pertain to both.
So just police and firefighters?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would move on the floor to rename it.
Make sure you're all using your mics. Thank you.
Yeah, but
I don't know if we
So,
could rename the Police Transparency and Accountability Act of 2020. Isn't that something set in stone?
No, it's just, it's
No.
part, it's a piece of the, it's part of the legislation itself, so we could change the name, the title of the legislation, correct? Judge, can I change the name of the ordinance, since we haven't voted on it yet?
Talking about the transparency one?
Yes.
Yeah. Ordinance 11.
Yeah, I know about it. It's, well,
Police and Firefighter Transparency and Accountability Act of 2020. So I'm just inserting "and firefighter"
So
there.
you're calling yours an act?
it
I think that's
includes
the message.
firefighters, whether you put it in there or not,
You don't
because
create that.
firefighters are in the state law.
Mhm.
So, if you want to amend it and specifically say, a firefighter's fine, but of course, the state law about,
Right.
well, there isn't any real. What they did is they did away with one law, and now they're gonna have to deal with the, freedom of information law and some other things. I think this is still an act in progress.
But I see your point. I don't see any harm, though, in going ahead and passing this as a piece of, given that we are, in fact, acting exactly in accordance with it. Councilman Moody had a question about calling it an act. Do you have a suggestion?
There's two questions. I know that I don't think I've seen that it's a general practice for the council to use the term act in
Do
naming.
not use the word term.
Right. Okay.
You have
That
ordinances, resolutions,
Right.
and local laws. Those are the three types of.
Okay, so I would like to suggest changing act to ordinance.
Yes.
and the other thing my recommendation
And
would
it will
be.
not be an act.
Fine, yep, thank you.
My recommendation would be is to.
And
I-
it'll include the fire department.
I think the
Right.
problem with the ordinance is that I do think it is too broad. I think that what it should be pointed at to is specific things that by law we want to have record of. So like when this came up, this was about race, so you might say any race-related incident you want public. Sexual harassment incident, I would like to see it be more defined as the personnel records and disciplinary actions regarding these particular things, as opposed to if the disciplinary action is they showed up late or they had a uniform on wrong. I don't think those are the things that we're trying to get at.
Well, but
'Cause
it,
right now,
Councilman
this
DeBrango.
says all personnel, this would arguably,
records to
Not
use
now.
to evaluate their
Yeah.
performance. It's what we're doing exactly right now, correct?
I don't think all of it is on, you don't post
So,
every single
so
thing.
58 indicates there's certain violations of policy that aren't required to be put out there. For example, if an officer shows up late to work, an officer doesn't wear their hat, they need to be counseled and disciplined. But per 50A, that doesn't have to be released. Also, there is some instances where maybe an officer receives some type of substance abuse counseling, things like medical in nature, that also aren't released.
Privacy, right.
So as long as the legislation mirrors what 58 says, that's what we're doing.
That's what I think would be best then, would be to write it in such a way that,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, so how is the state how is 50A written?
Well,
You don't-
It's 4 pages. Yeah,
Right,
I agree.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Council, I know there was a couple people had
Yes.
this. This is pretty pertinent.
Go ahead.
Because it actually has to do with what all three of you are talking about right now. I was going to ask or suggest if the council could modify the such as but not limited to posting on their departmental website all personnel records used, et cetera, to something like posting records in accordance with 50A on website. That way, if 50A changes, now we don't have to modify this, and so on and so forth. And I was just gonna ask Deputy Chief Noonan what they're currently posting, but obviously you guys just,
Well, there is no.
Well, what did you just say, though?
So,
Mr. President?
So-
Judge is correct. So with the
that's what I'm saying, so how would we word
There
that?
is no 58.
Right,
Yeah, there
it's
is no
repealed,
58.
right?
You
So,
can't refer to something that doesn't.
so
Right.
exist.
so my question is, what are you posting now? Like, how did you figure out what to post now?
Right.
So what I can do, I can forward to council the language from the state with the repeal of 58, which indicates now, so it defines disciplinary records and what's not included in disciplinary records, such as the minor infractions that I referred to, some of the medical records that may be somewhat associated with discipline that don't have to be, that aren't public.
Right, the
So
private
I don't-
matters.
If you're willing to,
If, well,
Yeah,
can-
but- Yeah,
can-
we
can-
we could wait on it, but I have a question. If we didn't have this, if I wanted to foil somebody's record, I'm a citizen, I want to foil Sergeant so-and-so's record, I can't get them?
yeah,
I
you
can get
can.
them.
you can, without this, you can get.
Without that, I can get the records no matter what.
Correct.
Okay, so basically, but we're just putting it out there prior. I mean,
Yeah.
right, I see a number of officers that are on that site. Really, no one asked for them.
Correct,
The administration just put it out there.
yes.
Okay.
can,
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
So, the question is, so the state law, we had to start doing this because the state said how we had to reform.
No,
No.
No.
Why would we do
well,
this?
this is, state, I'm sorry, I think that, so the state repealed 58. We went a step further, we're the first agency in the state to make those records public without a FOIA request.
right. Can I, are you done, Councilman Williamson?
So,
No.
basically, this thing right here, that we're already doing it, and plus, you're worried that a future administration can say, we're not doing it no more.
I want to codify this new norm in law.
Which is what you're saying.
Basically, that's not, so
But you
basically.
can't, because that's what
But-
my
Sure you
question
can.
was.
But as times change, you know, I mean, this is what's going on, we're shooting out the hip of repeal. Shouldn't we wait for a state law to come out and say, this is what we're gonna do, this is the end story?
Well, but it sounds like what the deputy chief was saying is that there is now a state law, there are state guidelines about what to allow to release and what not. You don't release, say, private medical records, for instance, or somebody is late or somebody doesn't wear their hat. So I would like to suggest that I wait until the deputy chief forwards me that document from the state, and then I will rewrite this to make it perfectly consistent with that state, those state
My
guidelines.
other question is, I still
Mr.
have the floor.
Chairman,
Go ahead,
Mr.
I'm-
Chairman,
I still have the floor real quick.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, let Williamson finish first.
Mr. Yield,
No, not yet. So, I can't lose my train of thought. Go ahead, Judge.
I'd like to ask, Chief, did you receive something from the state, the police department? Some guideline? I know of no other act that succeeded this. Is there, are you saying there was another act by the state?
No, Judge, nothing other than what was, the repeal of 58.
58 is gone.
Correct.
So that means that if you want the disciplinary record of a police officer, there's no prohibition to getting it.
Correct.
There was a prohibition under 58, and firefighters too.
But Judge, not to interrupt,
And they did away with that.
when they repealed 58, they did add some language to that I mentioned about some of the minor infractions in the medical records. So with the repeal, they did make some language changes. I guess it's not 58 anymore, but
It's almost like they're using the inverse of what was repealed to figure out, I'm just,
I have the floor.
okay, all right, well,
But
Mark also has the
the-
floor, man.
the- But I recall, when this all happened, there was a lot of talk in the legislature about freedom of information law and how they were gonna handle that. Because now, these records are FOIA. And they sort of, as far as I know so far, have not taken up that task, but then again, this came at a late time. And I was interested in Councilman Moody's observation, and that this thing is a blanket thing. This, when you pass an ordinance, you are ordering officials to do something. And that means post them all the time. And I don't know, I'm still not sure what the intent of the legislature was.
I'd be happy to speak to
The
that.
intent of the legislature, as much as I read that, was that a record of any public officer is FOILable. And it, 58 was a restriction, clear statutory restriction against police and fire. They've done away with that. I don't see, and that's why I asked you that question, I'm not aware of a follow-up of when and how and what the legislature had in mind. If Councilman Friend's ordinance says that every time the records go on, does actually mean every time there's any kind of an incident? Like somebody calls up and says, you know, that officer was not very polite to me. That's an incident. Does that automatically go on some website? Is that your understanding? I mean, you're the deputy police chief. What do you do? Do you think you have an obligation to put that on the website?
So,
I mean, I'm just asking questions. I'm
So,
not
for
making a
example,
conclusion. I'm asking you a question,
a
what
civilian-
you think your obligation is, and what you think your obligation is if they pass this. Because Councilman Moody says he thinks it's kind of broad stroke, and I don't know if he has something specific in mind. All I'm saying to you that, first of all, it's not an act, it's an ordinance. And it's an ordinance directing what officials, I presume the police chief and the fire chief, put these personnel records on. What personnel records? And there are some delineations in the law about what you don't get, you know, personal things, that sort of thing. And I'm not so sure myself, the reason I'm bringing it up, is whether you have an obligation to post everything, you know, before anything happens. You know, people make charges against police officers just like everybody else. That doesn't mean they're true. And just because somebody puts something on a website that Sergeant so-and-so was accused by a citizen, so what? I mean, does that mean it's true? And what were the circumstances and all of that? And accusations become like the truth. And I always think that somebody has a right, but no officer can go back on the website and say, hey, by the way, you saw my name and my record, but that person's filled with anger with me because I know that person personally, and actually I know that person. It was more of a personal argument than anything else. You see what I'm getting at?
I do, Judge, and to answer your
I mean,
question.
have you
Yeah.
gentlemen down there and the fire chief had a discussion about just what your duty and obligation is? Because I know of no follow-up that tells you what your duty and obligation is and how you do it. But this is an ordinance that says what it says. And I don't know, what occasion do you publish this thing?
Judge, in your example, so if there was a civilian complaint, there would be the entire investigation from start to finish, and its conclusion would be on there. So if it was a frivolous complaint, and determined that not to be substantiated, the complaint along with the investigation and the reason for that conclusion would be in the personnel file, and then put on big public.
Okay.
Yeah, and there are numerous instances where.
Well, you know, I think that's the case of everything. You know, the old saying, you get charged on page 1 and you get acquitted on page 53.
Correct.
That's what I mean. I'm not quite sure what you do, what your obligation, but what you feel your obligation is. I don't know.
So,
But this is an ordinance. And I think I think the president was alluding to might need a little fine tuning. Is that what you were getting at?
Yeah, kind of in accordance with the overly broad comments from Councilman Moody. And if Deputy Chief had a list that they were doing already,
I want to just follow up on that.
Councilperson Friend already offered to, yeah.
Follow up with what the judge said. You know, in addition to the bad, so the use of force investigations to civilian complaints, we felt to paint the entire picture of the officer, we also included good. We get a lot of, letters of
Accommodation.
Accommodation,
Right.
letters from the public about the officer, so we paint a whole picture of the officer, not
Which
just
is great.
everything negative
That's
in
right.
the file. So we do more than what would be required, for a FOIL. If someone FOILed just the disciplinary records, they provide with just the disciplinary records. We felt that it's important for the officers to show that, you know, it's not just discipline, this is what the officer's done throughout their career. You know, not just-
Councilman Moody's next.
I think that my recommendation would be to work with Councilperson Friend or to amend this to have specificity about what this council wants to see, both good and bad, and that it be limited to the conclusive action after post investigation. That it doesn't necessarily, you know, and I think that provides cover toward the community. I think it answers the call of transparency from the community, as well as covers officers from feeling as though the file is a tool against them, the transparency is a tool against them.
Agreed.
But I think that the council, I think it is a good conversation to figure out what the council would agree to that I think are timeless. I mean, not use of force, but excessive use of force, or, you know, sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, those type of things that, you know, at least that's my recommendation.
Right. May I,
You
Mr.
may.
President, or may I?
Yes.
What do I gotta do here to get my,
Yep.
I had my hand up here for 15
Councilman
minutes.
Beatrice first.
Okay, Councilman Beatrice.
Sorry, Councilman
So
Beatrice.
I just got a
apologize.
couple questions here. So please explain to me, if we did nothing here, we have to follow the retrieval of 50A, correct? It was
No.
correct?
So,
So you had, they reprieved this law,
yes.
and so the records have to be public.
The only
No.
difference, Councilman, is that they would have to be requested by someone.
Okay, so they can be requested. So, and we went over and above and put it out, put it there so everybody can see it, because that's the right thing to do.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I
But
wanted.
May
at
I,
your
Mr.
discretion, right?
May I, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry.
But at your discretion, so like you
We made a
decide.
decision to put them
Right.
out. We don't use discretion to put them all out there, but we made a decision to put them out there.
So, Deputy Chief, would you say within the next 6 months, or whatever, the state is gonna come up with a rule, a law that needs to be done? Because in my view, if the city of Utica and I'm using examples, the city of Utica puts their records out there, and the city of Syracuse doesn't, and the city of Rochester does, we're all over the board. Do you foresee down the road the state coming through with a law where everybody has to do the same thing?
It's potentially a possibility. I know right now there's probably a lot of court matters going on between.
Between.
agencies that are contested.
Correct, okay.
That was your thought.
They very well could be, you know.
So, I mean, realistically, if there's a problem with somebody, there's no 50A, it has to be foiled, you can see all their records.
Correct.
So if somebody wants to know anything, you can foil it. So all this right here, it's really not necessary, is it, would you say? Is it really necessary
It's
to
not the
have all
deputy
this
chief's
out there?
place. That's
I'm
not
just
the deputy.
asking. What's that?
It's not for him to decide.
It's not for him to
No,
decide.
but I mean, it's there, it's not like you're hiding anything. If any officer that's on this force or fireman, if I wanna know something about them, all I do is file their record and it's there anyways. So what's the purpose of all this?
I think I can address that.
What's
So,
Celeste, you have your thought back? Let him go with his thought, because
okay, because you got it back.
before the judge,
So
yep.
Judge, with this 58, we got civil service law, we got all these different laws going on, just like the deputy chief said, that there's probably litigation going on most likely with all this, what you cannot do. Police officers do have their constitutional rights, just like everybody else does. And I know that under civil service law, there's certain things you can and cannot do. But, you know, if we put that out there, like this, or whatever the case may be, I mean, when we get a suit against us under civil service law, there are constitutional rights. Even though, what he said, that if you want the record, just foil it, and it's yours.
Right.
So,
I don't get
with
it.
this, I I mean,
Mr. Chairman?
kind of taking away the constitutional rights of some of the police officers. Maybe that's why it was repealed. I don't know. Why did they repeal it? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Miss-
Why are we going above and beyond?
Can I answer him, Mr. Chairman? May I answer him?
Yes, you may ask your question. You're the boss.
There was a fellow by the name of Freeman who was the head of FOIL. He wrote the Freedom of Information Act, and he spoke at MVCC one time. And one of the first questions he was asked, and I think a lawyer asked him, in fact, I know a lawyer asked him, why did you provide in the law and back 50A? Because lawyers, when they got police officers on the stand, wanted to have access to their record of how many times they had done this and all that sort of thing. And at the time, I remember Freeman's answer, because I was there. He said, I thought it shouldn't be there. And of course, FOIL did not open the door. What the state legislature did is they didn't do anything with FOIL. What they did is just repealed 50A. So now, if you go into a lawsuit and as a police officer, a fire officer, the house burned down and what the act of the fireman was and everything, that his personal record, that particular fireman that you are questioning about their competence and what they did that day and whether they've ever been disciplined for the way they've acted or a police officer, now that is not only foilable, it is admissible in the court and you're not protected anymore. Now, as far as the constitutional rights, all of you aren't protected either. Everything you do is foilable. And the legislature thought that it's time that everybody be foilable. But they haven't done the FOIL Act yet about what you get and when you get it. And I think when you get it has some sort of bearing because your disciplinary record is only legitimate when you have gone through the hearing process and have been adjudged to have been sanctioned. If it went through the process by whoever the chief, how they do that, and it finds out that they found no merit to it, I'm not so sure that that's going to be out there. And but the original accusation's going to be out there, and that's the only place where I think, if I were a police officer, that's what I would be concerned about. I mean, every little thing I do, when somebody makes a complaint, you know, and says something, I did something, you know, really.
Judge, I did find I found the.
You know, you actually know more about this than I do, and I'd like to know from you so that they'll know and be guided what you think your obligation is and what their obligation is.
So I'm just going to read it from the law, Judge. It's a little bit lengthy, but just sort of. So what we're required to provide with the repeal of 58 are.
Now, wait, you said what we're required. What do you mean what you're required? What told you what you're required? Did you get some sort of directives from somebody?
Yes.
Who was it from?
New York State.
Pardon me?
New York State.
Yes, and I think that that's what they should have and see. And I
That's what I
think
said 20
that's
minutes
what
ago.
Councilman Friend asked for.
Right. May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, before you read it all, I think maybe you can give us a copy and then maybe
Summarize-
we'll keep this in committee.
Just quickly summarize that, I can go back and go with that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
So it has to be the complaint, allegation, and charges against the employee. The name of the employee complained of or charged. The transcript of any disciplinary trial or hearing, including any exhibits introduced in such trial or hearing. The disposition of any disciplinary proceeding. The final written opinion or memorandum supporting the disposition of the discipline imposed. What's excluded is a technical infraction, means a minor rule violation by the employee, such as where there's no interaction with the public, as well as medical records.
Okay.
Like I said, we made the
You went way
decisions to
beyond.
include everything.
Yeah.
Right. May I,
that's
Mr.
my-
Chairman?
That's
May
it.
I,
And
Mr. Chairman?
summarize that quickly as
Thank you.
possible.
I appreciate that. So as I've already said a good 20 minutes ago, I'm happy to amend this so that it's so that it's consistent with with what the deputy chief just described to us. So I'd like to keep it in committee so that I can do that. In terms of just answering one other question, why do this if 50A has already made it allowable that these sorts of records can be foiled? It is because the burden of knowing this stuff should not rest upon the citizen who has to foil something. Transparency means that we put it out there for them to easily find on a website. And then one last point that I'll have, nobody objects to the fact that the mayor directed the chief and the deputy chief to do this. Nobody's yelling at the mayor about why should you do this. So what I expect, this legislation does nothing but codify the norm that the mayor and the chiefs have already enacted for months now.
May I say one
But I would
more?
like to keep it in committee.
May I say
Just
one more
one-
thing?
Councilman Beach.
So, responding to what Councilperson Friend just said, nobody's against this. My point of the whole thing is, it's being done already. Why do we gotta do it again? It's being done. The city went out over and above what they had to do. Mayor did a great job, the police chief did a great job, the deputy police chief did a great job. It's here, it is here. And if the next mayor came in and ever turned it, now we bring something like this, and in the meantime, it could be foiled and the record is there.
But
That's all
what's the
I'm
harm?
saying.
What's the harm
It's just
in it?
redundant.
What's the harm in it?
We spent 25 minutes talking about something that we're already doing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilman Beatrice. You're up next there. Jack?
Thank you. I think there's some credence to this ordinance, but what the issue is, and it's, Joe, it's exactly what you said. You know, let's say 3 years from now that a new administration comes in and wants to change it. Well, I think it's the policy right now of this council here that, of some people on this council, that they would like to make this an ordinance, and then that would force the new executive people, the new executive branch, let's say we have a new mayor, to actually come out and ask us to change it if he's got a problem with it. That's what this does. Instead of them changing it, and then we got to go after them to pull it back, let's say. So it just puts in a little more cement. I'm not saying this is written perfectly, and I concur that it probably should go back, and we should take another look at it. And Celeste, I'd ask you to work a little more with the PD here, and how you would like to put it together.
Right.
But you know, so there's some good and bad in this. But this is protecting. This is saying that this is what this council wants to do. Now, if there's another council down the road that would like to change that, that's on them. If there's a new administration that would like to change it, well, they're going to have to come back to the common council, the legislative body, the city government, and ask to change it then. So, and I'm not saying who's going to vote for it or who isn't going to vote for it here, but at least it gives us a chance, this council actually to put a stamp on it, onto what was done. And being that we are changing it, you'll have your say in it. How would you like it written? Celeste will have her say on it, how she would like it to be written. The police department will have their say on how they could have it to be written. And then I think we just put our heads together in the end there, and
It's either a yay or a nay.
we'll figure out what we put together. All right? I second your motion to put it back into committee.
Thank you. Great.
All right,
Thank you, Jack.
let's move on. Okay,
You can go back to my
yes, okay. All right, we're gonna go back to ordinance number one, no, not ordinance, resolution number 11, which is enforcement of the New York state law.
Okay, so this was written by my attorney. I told him what I wanted, and all I care about is resisting arrest and public officials to go with the law of the destroyed it. All right. So basically, resisting arrest is the first, second, or third degree. Resisting arrest would be just pulling their arms away. That's resisting arrest, or 15-minute melee where a cop being hurt and everything else. There should be different degrees, but I think it needs to be reformed at that level, because it's out of my league, it's out of my pay grade, and it's out of my lane. But at the same time, we're gonna reform the police department, we need to reform these laws for the criminals. Resisting arrest, like you said, could just be just pulling their arms away, or, like you said, a 25-minute meal. They should be different degrees of resisting arrest right now. Different degrees of resisting arrest, not just one, up to 1 year and fine, up to $1,000 can be pled down to nothing. I think it should be, if it's a grossly out of control resisting arrest, then it should be almost a felony. Because this is where people get hurt, and this is where a lot of these issues are popping up and are rising. And that protects the police officers as well as the criminals. Now, the other thing is, it's just like taking down statues and stuff. The public officials, that's their responsibility to make sure safeguard different things. And so that was another thing to tell basically the mayor that just because the chaos was going on or crowds are making decisions off what the crowds want, all right, and not what the citizens of Utica want. They're there to protect that property. So when they put like a KKK thing on Christopher Columbus, all right, the police officer should have arrested that man right then and there, but for some reason it couldn't happen, or whatever the case may be, all right, because let them do what they want. No, that was, he climbed the statue, he put it on there, all right, he disrespected that piece, and he still put himself in a situation where if he fell and hurt himself, liability, now the city's gonna get sued, all right? So there should be, that's where I'm getting at with this, is that we have a responsibility as elected officials to make sure that all this stuff is safeguarded and that we protect it, because it's just not the mob's stuff. If it's personal property, all right? So say if we had a big riot and they start destroying people's property, all right? And we don't do anything as elected officials try to stop it and squelch it, like some places did. They let it happen. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that we do whatever we possibly, elected officials, to stop stuff before they start destroying stuff. That's our responsibility as elected officials, to protect our citizens, their businesses, and everything else. Not sit there and let mob rules. That's what I'm trying to get at. And right now, resisting arrest is up to 1 year in jail, up to $1,000 fine. That's it. Resisting arrest. It's like you said, it's broad. I'll use your words. Resisting arrest is pulling your arms away. Okay, that's not. All right, you're a little upset. But when you're throwing a melee for 30 minutes and you hurt 2 police officers, you spit in their face, you know, you're bleeding and you're rubbing blood all in their mouth and everything else, whatever the case may be. There should be some type of, you know, resisting arrest. It should be different levels, just like murder. It should be different degrees. That's my opinion of this whole thing, and I think a lot of this stuff, if these people know that they're going to throw a temper tantrum and throw resisting arrest for a half hour, trying to get in the car, kicking out windows, doing this, doing that, and it's just a $1,000 fine. Are you serious? That's all? And they know that. All right? And the ones that resist arrest, you're probably going to jail for a long time anyway, so they had nothing to lose. All right? But why are we taking it? Do you agree with that there, Deputy Chief?
Aren't you glad you came this evening?
The police officers have very difficult. They do encounter individuals who fight them and resist arrest them. And oftentimes they're injured. And, you know, I think the thing we would ask is that individuals comply. There's a process in place. If they're not happy with what's going on, make complaints. There's the judicial system. Resisting arrest only leads to bad outcomes for everybody.
No, basic.
But it's the same.
Yeah, basically what you want to do is you want to reach out to our state legislator and the governor and request them that they increase the fines for resisting arrest depending upon how much resistance was and how much damage they caused. So it would be more severe penalty, whether it be financial or in jail or felony, whatever it may be. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. We just have to word it properly. That's all I'm asking.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
The judge written this after I told him,
Yeah.
so he kind of did it by the rules.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, may I? So I do get what you're getting at. In terms of how this is written, it seems to me you've got 3 things going on. But I just want to, the description you just gave, like somebody having a, I think you said temper tantrum, and like really doing a lot in terms of like striking out, etc. Wouldn't that be covered by assault? So there's resisting arrest, which not even just pulling your hands away. If I simply walk away, right, then that's resisting arrest. But if I hit an officer, if I'm in the resisting if I'm in the mode of resisting arrest and I pop somebody off, and you can all see that, right? You can see me really doing that, my left hook. Wouldn't I be subject to assault charges?
Can I say,
Yeah.
jump in on this?
Do you get what I'm getting at?
Yeah, it's up to us.
You see what I'm getting at
So
though?
it's
Like,
gonna
there's
keep-
resisting arrest and then there's assault upon
Well,
a police officer.
assault has to have different levels on it. It's just like, the majority of the time I ever got hurt when I was a parole officer was trying to take people into custody. You have, there's so many things that they could do.
Right.
You gotta understand the nature and what's going on at the time. You have people that, they don't wanna be brought back into custody, all right? And so all of a sudden, they start fighting. Now, I don't mean punching you in the face, but they start throwing their elbows, and they don't want to put the cuffs on and everything. And, you know, some of these guys are like 250 pounds, and they got jail muscles, because they've been in jail for the last 10 years.
Right.
And you get thrown off, you get your head smashed against the wall, you get your knee taken out.
Right.
And and 90% of the time, we don't even charge them with that, because it's such a fleckless law in the sense that, you know, the judge is gonna throw it out.
But wouldn't those
But-
actions
but
count
but
as
so
assault?
no, that's not assault. Assault is if he strikes you.
Okay.
Assault is if he on purpose
Okay, so if
goes
somebody's
and tries to
flailing around,
bodily harm you.
You actually,
But,
you actually have to have a physical injury.
right.
so if somebody's flailing around and you catch an elbow in the chin,
Yeah.
because that's not assault. Okay, helpful, very
Being
helpful.
Yeah,
harassment, it's just a physical,
and
I don't want
the-
the physical contact.
Okay,
You
but it's not
actually have
assault.
a physical
Okay.
injury for-
And you know,
Very helpful.
we're always, and I understand as a body, we try to, because we represent the people, and we try to protect the public. But it's getting to the point, whereas the police, because they can't really grab anybody and throw them down, and there's so much, they have to hold back so much, that they're restrained. And a lot of times when you try to restrain yourself, you get hurt worse than when you just go in and try to take his legs out and go down and do what you gotta do.
Right.
So that is one of the most dangerous jobs of a police officer. And I'm telling you, I've gotten hurt a couple times. It's just putting someone into custody. And when we go to take somebody into custody, it's usually, okay, come on, let's put your hands behind your back. Just put your hands behind. We're not going in there swinging,
Right.
because we don't wanna get hurt.
No, that was very
You know,
helpful.
we don't wanna get hurt. What
And
we all wanna do,
necessarily
we wanna
have
go
to
home at
decide.
night, and we don't go in there to try to escalate it.
Right.
You know, nobody in their right mind tries to go, but when he turns around and says, well, I'm not going back to jail, or, you know, we have to protect our police officers.
Yeah, I'm
We have
not-
to, and not just police officers, our firemen, our correction officers, our parole, probation, so if we just take our New York State legislature, have them look at this, at least it hasn't to cause pause and to take a look at this, and to see what maybe some of the people in Albany can do to try to fix this and make it a little more severe, thank you, for the point that, you know, hey, if you're gonna get arrested, stop and get arrested. Just, you know, do what you gotta do. So I'm in favor of this, that they do try to, you know, maybe put some different levels of resisting arrest.
The majority of our officer injuries occur during incidents where individuals arrest or resist arrest. We just had 2 officers put out of work, that was last week.
But it's not necessarily assault.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Milo?
I just got
You
a
have the
small
floor.
suggestion, Mark, on this one. Everything looks good on it to me.
Microphone?
Everything looks good on it to me, but, where it says, the governor of the state of New York should review, I think maybe we could put, the governor of the state of New York, shall, or we encourage you to review. The word should, you know how the governor is. He's tough, so, all right, maybe we could put the word encourage in there to review.
Can we send this to the Attorney General too? To New York? Is that the legislature?
Sure you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Attorney General's office,
Attorney
absolutely.
General's office, if it does pass?
If you, who would you like to send it to, Mark? Give us a list. Let's give our clerk a list.
Mary Ann Button,
Mary Ann, okay,
Attorney General,
Attorney General,
Senator Griffin,
Griffin,
Congressman, whoever.
What about
Congressperson
Schumer, our state senators,
Schumer,
and the other one was Gillibrand,
Gillibrand.
let me see both of them. Who's the minority leader in state legislature? The minority leader and majority leader of each.
Griffith is second.
Griffo is majority, minority
No, I'm talking for.
Minority and majority leader of ledge. All right.
And like I said, the other thing was, I'm fine with that, but that's it, yeah, it's a good shot.
All right.
I'm okay with it.
All right. You all set? Councilman Moody?
Deputy Chief, who decides the, Councilman Williamson said up to a year. So who decides that up to? The DA?
So that'd be the legislators, New York State, penal law would define letters of violation, misdemeanor, or felony. That's set by the legislators who write the law.
So there already is a spectrum, if you will, as to how much a person can get in terms of fines or jail time, right? If they resist arrest.
Yeah, I believe the resisting arrest is a misdemeanor, could be, jail time, could be.
Up to 1 year.
One, up to 5 years.
Up to 5 years?
So violation up 1 year, misdemeanor is 5, the 5 is up to about 5.
Well, we lose 2 officers.
But the 2 officers that had the resisting arrest, was there an assault charge connected to that?
Don't believe so.
But it's still up to 5 years, right? For the resisting arrest. Up to a year.
Up to 1 year confinement, up to $1,000 fine. Resisting arrest is a broad blanket. You can beat the crap out of 5 police officers, put them all in the hospital, you get up to 1 year if you don't get charged with assault.
How often does that happen?
Huh?
How often does that happen?
We got 2 officers that went out.
They were beat. They were beat up, or
No, not charged with assault.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is they were hurt in the melee or trying to put this guy in handcuffs to get him in the car.
What happened was the individual was going to be placed under arrest, he ran, was foot pursuit, There was resisting to fight, and no injuries as a result of punches, but during the whole process of resisting arrest, the officer ran. Whereas the person had just complied from the beginning, it wouldn't have resulted in injuries to the officer.
and so that person's not going to get a year, or you can't just.
We don't.
That goes in front of the judge, right? The judge
so
would
the
give
judge
him.
decides.
Yeah.
The judge has the discretion to decide how long that is, right?
Yes.
Can't give him a year.
Now, so my other question is this. Maybe somebody in the room can help me with this.
Can't hear you too well.
So somebody can probably help me with this one. Should review the laws concerning willful obstruction of justice by individuals and public officials, as well as law of resisting arrest, to increase the penalties of the same with regard to public officials who blatantly refuse to enforce the laws and ordinances of state public bodies they represent, by subject for immediate charge of recall for the dereliction of their official duties. Now, Councilman Williamson suggested that you all did not act when that man, which I totally disagree with, put that KKK costume on the Christopher Columbus statues. I thought that was grotesque, horrible. My grandmother's from the South, and so if she was driving by that statue, she would have had to see a KKK statue in her community. But with this is written, should the mayor be recalled? Should the mayor be recalled, given
this
how
is a
this
resolution. I
Mr.
gotta just.
No. I'm talking about the
Who's
wording.
got the
I'm
floor?
talking
Who's got
about
the
the
floor?
wording. I'm
Can I
talking
answer?
about the wording.
Let me answer. Mr. Moody, when I draw legislation, I do it in the form that is proper. The 2 items you're talking about that I drew are resolutions. So why do resolutions? Because they are all state law matters of which you have no control, including Councilman Friend's ordinance, really, because those are all usurped. When you tell the state legislature and the governor in the one about enforcement, what you're saying is that there is a statute, 19500, which says that public officials are supposed to do acts, and if they don't do the acts and enforce the laws of the state, that is a violation of law, and the penalties are set forth in the statute. When they talk about 20530, that's a state statute. You have no control over that whatsoever. All this is suggesting, as Councilman Williamson wanted, is that maybe they ought to take another look at this statute and make it a more forceful statute than it is. You don't have anything to do with that. You don't have anything to do with punishing public officials who don't do anything when obvious laws are being broken and they know about it. So this is a resolution. It has no real effect other than informing the people who make the laws, which are the legislature and the governor, because these are state statutes. The same thing is true with 58. 58 is repealed. But there's a resolution here that I drew that said that we're going to comply with the mandate that the governor gave us and the legislature, the governor gave it by executive order, that you have to do some sort of plan. And so in answer to that plan, we give a resolution saying to the governor, we are doing just what you asked us to do. And I understand that is already in the works, the meetings and things of that nature, community meetings and all that. That's also a resolution because it has nothing to do with 58, other than the fact that the governor saying that in conjunction with transparency, he wants some sort of plan of how you do it. And Officer Mooney, the chief, said he got some sort of directive. That didn't come from the legislature. That came from some overseer branch, because that's not a state statute.
Judge, I get all of that. I know this is a resolution. I know we have no power. And so my question is not the legality of it as it is the message that you send. I feel that when you couple this with the argument about resisting arrest, are we sending a message that if a mayor or a council person is not arresting, what message are we sending? What public officials are we going to recall, and what actions would rise to that level? So I know. So
that's up at that level. This is above our pay grade, above our lane. That's why we're just setting up there and saying, hey, let's revisit it. That's all I'm asking. Revisit it. I'm not saying change the law. Let them decide that. It's all it is revisiting what's out there now. If you're going to
I'm going to agree with Councilman, but I don't like the wording on this. I just don't like the wording. I'll accept more severe or punishable offenses for resisting arrest, but you don't have to add what's going on in these American cities and the lack of enforcement of law. That has nothing to do with it. I think get to the point where if they're resisting arrest, we would like you to look into maybe making it more punishable offense. That's it.
Can I have the floor for a
That's all
moment?
I'm looking for. That's
Mr.
what I would
Chairman?
like to see.
Mr.
If
Chairman?
it's written like this, I'm not going to accept
Mr.
it.
Chairman,
But if it's
may I?
changed, I will.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Go ahead.
I want to, first of all, completely agree with that. That first couple sentences, the chaos in American cities and the lack of enforcement of the law. I mean, this just reads like ripped from the headline. So I also really object to that language. But I want to go back to an earlier conversation about assault against police officers in the process of resisting arrest. My understanding, just did sort of a quick, flying by the seat of my pants research, says that under New York statute for assault on a police officer, the required intent is an intent to prevent a police officer or other qualified professional from performing a lawful duty. So if a police officer is in the middle of lawfully arresting somebody and somebody is resisting that arrest and that officer gets hurt in the process of that, that counts as an assault under New York state law. That's my understanding of reading the law here.
There has to be physical injury.
Right, but if an officer is hurt in the process of a resisting arrest, one need not have sort of intentionally clocked an officer in the chin with a closed fist. Your elbow flails out because you're flailing, and that officer gets hurt, and that officer was in the middle of performing their lawful duty, that counts as an assault. So again, I'm not convinced that we need to increase the penalty for resisting arrest, because the exact behavior that this language is meant to cover is already covered by assault laws in the state of New York. If a police officer gets hurt by someone resisting arrest, then that's assault.
But you're not a lawyer, you can't decide that, you're not the DA.
Sorry,
No,
hang on.
that's always
we have to
true for
pause
every
the
last
whole-
thing that we
Hang
ever
on just one
do.
second. This has nothing to do with what you guys are actually talking about. We have to pause this whole conversation for just 2 seconds. Let's continue this committee meeting as it is, but I have to switch to the other meeting because I have people texting me saying they can't get into the caucus.
Okay.
So let me just start the caucus WebEx.
4 minutes, 3 minutes?
No, like 2, not even 1 minute. I'm just gonna switch it and then pick it right back up from there so the live feed's still going. And when we start the next feed, we'll just announce that we're still in the committee
We're
meeting.
gonna run over, because there's a few more items I have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I gotta get into the other one so the other people who are joining will know that. All right, so anyone on this meeting, I'm gonna close this WebEx and start the full meeting WebEx, WKTV, and I believe there was a few other people, yeah, the fire department. So 30 seconds, I'm gonna jump on to the other meeting.
Frank, is the majority leader coming?
No, she's not attending, she's on virtual. She's on,
But, you see all this stuff, you should come. It's all state law, I don't know why you. What's this?
Should've got some candy.
Do what?
that, turn around.
Yes.
You want to add?
Oh my God, it's orange.
Peter, city of Utica property still on fire.
Listen, if you got enough support, go for it.
Prior to the adoption of a new code.
It's a request, and I understand, resisting arrest, and like you said, you've made a great point, kicking the car, and this, and that, just doing wild, crazy stuff. They should be penalized further for it, not
Exactly.
just that. And I agree with you, I'm not disagreeing.
Clean it up?
Yeah, that's pretty shitty.
Okay, that's it now. Thank you.
No, it's not. I'm just switching the WebEx so people stop. Oh, they pulled up.
They're allowed to have it, they're allowed, instead of stopping it, okay, let's stop it. Why do you want to? That's all.
Your 2 minutes is up.
Well, you guys, you're on. Go for it.
Are we gonna continue this
Frank.
conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah, just announce that you're in this, and then, let me just, is WKTV dialed back in yet?
Was there a section of
For the
the
new
zoning
viewers
law
out there, we are into
that's being
the
proposed?
Legislation and Public Safety Committee that we are reviewing. And it's ordinance,
Where's that?
resolution number 11, which
One we
is
have?
enforcement of New York State law.
Present one? Does it change under this one? And
So what I wanted to do, is if we could reword a little of this, and I don't think we need all that chaotic stuff in there, I'm fine with it, I agree with you.
Just cut it down and make it
But-
simple.
And then
You wanna
email
tweak it now, we
City
can
of
tweak it
Utica.
now, and then,
Yeah, but it has to pertain to a section. Well, I asked him, what extra section that is.
What would I call it, codes officer? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
This is one about the size. And
I would just say that
At the
Department,
codes officer?
Utica Department of Code Enforcement.
Okay, the discretion of
first paragraph would be number 1.
Non-conforming.
The second paragraph seems fine. I think the third paragraph probably,
That's the shit to the meeting.
No, it's, yeah, it's the cover, but also the size, large. So you guys can decide what counts as large. It doesn't
Just put your calendar. put
the
calendar.
interpretation of the law rightly and wrongly expect police officers to allow themselves to be attacked, spat
And
upon,
then,
pushed upon. We don't
double
need all
click
that.
the one at 5:55.
Yeah.
Yeah, then scroll down.
I'd say 205-30 makes a crime, resist lawful arrest. We are hereby requesting that resisting arrest be punishable
You're wasting time.
I don't know.
You think?
I don't know how to do it,
Whenever.
It's a
Oh, yeah,
resolution.
right now, yeah.
It's a resolution.
My
Question,
three-course
yeah,
meal,
resisting
Kit Kat,
arrest.
eat Swedish fish.
but resisting an unlawful arrest.
Yeah.
It's all
would be-
state law, that's number one.
Mhm.
Number two, I'm trying to find out.
Would encourage
Section of
lawmakers
law
to make
that finds
resisting
out
arrest
amendment
more
to
punishable.
Civilized harm.
Are we still in the committee meeting?
Right.
We
Yeah.
went back in.
That's all set, Melissa, you're good,
Okay.
thank you.
It's the thing they mentioned that
Like the
will
judge said,
motivate
did it
them
by
to pass the
by
bill.
statutes and everything else. Nothing
But
in
you
there.
just can't.
Right, we're just
put it
requesting
in
that they look into it a little bit deeper, and we want them
It's already
to,
there in the.
maybe, instead of 1 year, like you said, maybe 4 years, whatever. Make it a
You know
law.
where that is, Brian?
Judge Guillermo,
Looking at it now.
Right
Yes.
we're on the committee meeting, so Councilman Brango would like to make some changes to the,
You have the YouTube back up?
what you wrote on
Okay.
resolution number 11.
Judge, I'll write it out and have you take a look at it.
Okay. Good idea.
And then we'll go from there. So we're gonna end this discussion on this, and then if everybody agrees, that's fine. If not, we'll put it on the floor, let's vote, and we'll vote it
All we need is 5. That's
as,
it.
whatever it is.
We got 5, just for this way it sits.
Okay.
What we-
Well, does Councilman, Williamson and Beatrice go along with your amendment that you're gonna do, Mr. DeBrango? Is that it?
Yeah, you wanna
You
bring
made
it up
some
right
sort
now.
of-
Yeah, if they're okay
You
with
made
it.
some arrangement, just read it into the record, and then the clerk will
Yeah,
take
thank you.
care of that.
No. I think I
All right,
You got us support for it?
Just mention the paragraph you're amending, that's all.
wait till it hits the floor.
Please
next
change the
up,
word shall to encourage.
Councilman Miola, you sponsored a resolution regarding a new act regarding the repeal of 58 civil rights.
Leaving in committee?
What's that?
Leaving in committee.
Oh, the resolution regarding.
Next up, the ordinance number 1, sponsored by Councilman Neil Williamson of Lomedico. An ordinance amending section 2-31 of City Utica City Code by addition of a new section 2-31-8. We're gonna leave that back in committee.
You got the proposal,
Okay.
you have it there?
Okay, I believe I'm complete with the Public Safety Committee. Does anybody else want to work on Committee of the Whole?
the package soup.
Any legislation there?
Yeah, I wrote it, so I mean,
All right, whoa, hang on.
You have it?
Is the committee meeting over? Someone make a
As far as the
motion to
Public
adjourn
Safety
it.
Committee is
Just
over.
it?
Okay,
Got the community?
all right. Before we start the pre-meeting conference, we do need to wait for WKTV to dial back into this, because they're not back in yet. So just give it one minute here. I'm gonna try and contact them and see what the deal is.
all right. Open it up, resolution number 2, resolution to create a quiet zone in the city of Utica, New York. Question, McNeil.
Yeah, this is all, we don't actually have any agenda items. This is stuff that's been sitting in committee for a while, so,
licensing committee, if you wanna vote on it, and they're by 7 o'clock?
Well, I think one thing we need to really get going is because of the cold's coming, is the feral cats and that issue. We need to really start looking on that. I like that Plattsburgh thing that somebody set up.
I did.
Jack, you set that up?
No, I did.
You did?
I sent it.
About the feral cats and Plattsburgh and everything else, so, I mean, we really gotta start, we put this on the back burner, this is way back in April, we're sitting on it, that means they don't want to make a decision.
Right, I agree.
All right, that's not right, we're doing these people injustice, we're doing the cats injustice because they're gonna suffer because of the cold, coming up, and we didn't do nothing over the summer. And, either to protect them, to help the neighborhoods, whatever we gotta do, but we should start looking at this, really taking this back up, and this is in our codes,
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
all right? So, I don't know, it's not gonna go away, I think we're doing it wrong if we don't do anything, so.
Councilman, may I have the floor? May I say something? So, I sent every one of yous, I know the biggest problem we have is, like the judge said, is finding a legal answer. So I did research, and I found Ilion, Plattsburgh, and I believe there's 2 other ones that have legislation that they passed. So what I kind of think we should do is send it up to Corporation Council and let them look at it and see what we can do. Because if Ilion can do something and Plattsburgh can do something, we should be able to do something.
Can you
So-
describe the legislation that Ilion did, for instance?
Ilion's, they did a licensing.
Okay,
They did, I don't have it exactly right off, but it sent it right over there. I know Plattsburgh's was the best one. And,
how recently did they do these?
2016, I think, I sent it, I forwarded it to all of you guys, and I haven't really, I didn't know we were gonna really bring that up tonight, so I didn't really have all the details on it. Yeah, but like I said, I sent every one of you an email with 3 different legislations, asking for suggestions, and I haven't heard anything back, and I understand it's a very touchy subject, so I kinda was just going with the flow too.
See, if people have indoor cats, they have
Right.
indoor cats, you're not gonna leave the house. They don't have to be worried about a license.
Right,
If people have outdoor cats, they should be licensed, if actually loses them and picks them up, they can find the owner. But then you got the cats that don't have no license, and people don't own them, whatever the case may be. Now, we might be able to do things to protect these cats, but they might be good cats,
right,
okay?
Stray
They might be
cats.
just abandoned cats, they might not be feral.
right.
They might be friendly and everything else. Now we can pick them up, take them to make sure they're good, wherever the guy is, whatever, and then they can be put up for adoption. Right now, we have nothing to protect these animals from the prison liquor company.
May
I
I,
think-
Mr. Councilman?
Okay.
May I? I mean, I agree with all of that, and I think the licensing is a fine idea, and I think it's a good point that those people who have indoor cats, this just won't apply to them and doesn't matter, right? But the difficulty is, so let's say that we have the cats who, like you say, don't belong to anybody, and they're not licensed. The picking them up and figuring out what to do with them is the really hard part, because
Right.
that takes resources. Somebody has to catch them,
But
we
that's
have,
up to us. That's gonna be up to the humane society or whoever.
but they're not gonna be required to do it.
Or it's gonna come up with chief, or the deputy chief, or chief of police, and then you got the dog warden, the animal warden, right? No,
They don't work with cats.
so it's a cat.
But passing a law that requires that outdoor cats be licensed doesn't fix the problem, because the cat that doesn't belong to anybody, if we don't have the resources to catch them, take them to a vet, get them fixed, and put them up for adoption, then they still stay on the streets. I mean, there's no,
Yeah, but they're picked up and they belong to somebody, they're tagged.
yeah,
All right, so listen, the neighbors across the street are complaining about your cat on their property, pooping in their garden,
right,
right? You need to control your cat, it's your cat, it's not your cat, it's
Right.
behind you.
right,
All right, so you need to control your cat. you know?
right,
And that's all it is, it's basically, because you got some cats, you just, like I said, I got 3 feral cats in my backyard, I don't care, I'll do what I can to take care of them.
right.
But there's some people, they just have, we gotta protect the feral cats as much as any other cat that's outdoors, especially with the winter coming up, and right now, there's no law to protect them, to get them out of the cold. People just, they look the other way,
But we could license them, and none of that other stuff would happen until we decide to devote, as a city, some resources pay Stephen Swan to take care of them, pay somebody
No,
to.
we already give them money. We
Right.
need to hold them to the fire
Yeah, but I
one
think
budget
I
season.
think they have a charter, you gotta double check.
Non-kill.
It's a non-kill, so if they have a charter as a non-kill, then you have to look at other resources.
And the other thing that I learned is they use feral cat is considered a wild animal. It's like catching a raccoon, you know, so there's your problem there too. You know, Marcus will tell you, I sent him, pictures last week. He went to a house, he's seen firsthand on Trenton Road what the people are living next to, what's going on. It turned into a code violation as much as an animal violation. Am I correct, Marcus?
Yeah, it was, I mean,
It was nobody should have to live next door to that. You agree?
yeah, what happens is the food attracts other animals.
Right.
And so
Right.
the other animals.
I can tell you what Plattsburgh said, but can I read this part?
Yeah.
The section was an attempt to answer questions in the city of Plattsburgh. Who is the pet's owner? It says it here. A person who keeps, maintains, or harbors a dog, cat, or knowingly allows a dog or cat to remain on the person's property, or who regularly feeds a dog or cat on the person's property is presumed to be the owner of the dog or cat, the law states. A person who has charge, care, custody, or control of a dog or cat is presumed to possess or control the dog or cat. So if you do that,
You're
you
responsible.
own the cat, you
Right.
own the
That's
dog.
interesting. Okay, that's interesting.
So that is the law that the city of Plattsburgh is using to enforce their plan.
Right.
So we fixed that issue, but I think to Celeste's point with the humane and Swan,
What do you do with them?
right, we don't fix that issue.
Right, there's something else in there on the sense that, there is the St. John's Feral Cat Fund in Plattsburgh where they find, farms to take the cats. This is something that we could also look into ourselves on that.
But yeah, I think, I think that second part is the really important part. Devoting some resources. There are volunteer groups here in the city who are devoted to cats, who will catch them. If they have some money, they get them neutered and they get them shots. And then they can even find farmers who say, oh, I'll take a cat.
Yeah, and that could be that.
But that takes-
That's in West Utica, and they get funding from the state, they wanna send them to a farm, by all means. But-
Beautiful.
But that takes resources. It doesn't take just a
Yeah,
law.
but that's not gonna come from us. That's gonna come from, they want to start an organization like they have,
Right,
and they want grant money,
right.
right? They gotta go out and raise money,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not gonna get money, to feed their own personal gain and not take care of animals.
Right, but that's my very point, that the licensing itself won't fix the issue.
Maybe,
That's my,
Maybe.
that's my,
but I don't think there's that many indoor outdoor cats that people are gonna really flexibly own.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So-
I mean, they're really not gonna, I don't know that, they're gonna come around and feed.
It's kind, may I have the floor? It's kind of like I told you from the beginning. It was one of the first things that I started getting calls on. I never, ever even had a clue that this even happened, okay? And again, the problem is few and far between, is where it is. Like Mark says he's got 3 cats in his backyard, who cares? But when I send Marcus, he sees it firsthand. There's other people on Triangle Road, different places, where you're talking 15 or 20 cats, and they can't even enjoy their back. Actually, this time of the year, when the snow comes and stuff, it's probably not as bad for them, because it's bad for the cats. You're killing the cats. But,
They got a 1
no,
to 3 year
no, nobody should have to live like that. And the problem is just very, very difficult to solve. And I think maybe that we should send, maybe I'll send it to the judge, the email I sent with the different legislations, and we send it through Corporation Council and get an idea on what they think, Because it seemed like before, when we had this committee meeting, we had everybody there, everything that we wanted to do, they just shot down. They didn't want to be bothered with it. Can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. But if other cities adopted stuff, we should be able to adopt something too.
It's
So-
gonna be a major where everybody's gonna have to get licensed for their, you gotta get up for your dogs.
yeah. No, I agree with that.
I say we just do it. The Plattsburgh.
Yeah, well, that's what, we gotta word it to what we.
Right.
Yeah, we gotta come up,
What's
know.
that?
And that Corporation Council just. Well, yeah, right.
Steve Swan,
Step one.
It's in their charter that they
Then, yeah.
Email it to you, they send it to it. So, would it be okay, since they are the professionals, I guess, in the area, to allow another group or some other group that's legit from the state of New York to take care of these feral cats if they're dropped off by the police department's warden, animal warden? You got these cats, what are you gonna do? Now, they can have a whole,
Not gonna happen.
you don't, yeah, it might, it's gonna have that. What happens if they have a raccoon? So, you run it over?
They have to specialized training, they have to change the whole job description for that position.
So who picks them up? Who picks up Plattsburghs?
I'd be interested in knowing what has Plattsburgh or Ilion done in
You'll really
addition.
get, I'm sending it to you.
Oh, okay, in addition to the licensing though.
Or can we put that position in parks, if not with the PD or
Are
something?
they doing more than
That's what you
licensing?
do.
So Eddie,
There's specialized training that goes along with
was, and this is another thing that I,
it.
yeah, and I understand that, but was, they say this,
So what happens if you get like a raccoon in the neighborhood?
you gotta call the guy that comes to,
I know, but how do you know if it's how do you get rid of
you have to call the,
Well,
gu-
private people.
yeah.
I have a whole family of groundhogs under my garage, and I paid a private guy to come and take them away. We got one raccoon and a skunk in the process.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, what happens if you have a wild, sort of wild animal city, I mean, we gotta get somebody from the zoo.
Didn't you have, what'd you have running around over by Home Depot years ago? The cow, right? Yeah, they couldn't, yeah.
If you could, I mean, I'm gonna choose find out how much it would cost to specialize training. You actually be able to do a lot of this stuff, right? Just pick up feral cats if necessary, or any cat.
Or codes, right?
Codes don't deal with animals at all.
Yeah,
do
we're
you,
not
Marcus?
testing them.
Oh, y'all don't do, y'all don't.
I mean, these are,
I really need you guys to, speak on the microphone. There's, people texting saying they can't hear anything on the
Okay.
meeting.
No.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
So you can find out in next, if there's specialized training, how much it costs the city for the 2 dog wardens, or whatever, to grab cats that are abandoned.
So,
Yeah, I just, because the mayor, I don't think bring it to that, it's an area that there's additional liability, there's additional costs, not only the training, but probably the job itself. I'll look into it.
Yeah, that's all I
Yeah.
said, look into it.
so,
Can I say something? I know the city doesn't want to do it, but we're obligated.
right, exactly.
As the department, as the leadership of the city and the departments within the city to do something if there is a problem. And I'm not saying that, Deputy Chief, that you have to be responsible for it, but if the mayor says he doesn't want to do it, well, I mean, that's something we gotta discuss with the mayor, because if it's a real safety issue in the city, it's gotta be taken care of. I'll just leave it at that, but, you know, this is a problem that's growing all the time. And, you know, we keep pushing it to the back, but
Right.
it's gonna get to the point where, we gotta act on it. And, you know, you're better off talking about it now, and when it comes, within the executive branch, because eventually it is gonna drop on your doorstep, and you at least wanna have a halfway decent plan put together to see, once we do drop it on you guys, to see what you're gonna do. So, start talking about it and see how you wanna handle it. That way you got a little forewarning.
Jack, I might be speaking out of turn. I mean, I think if something like
Probably.
that, yeah. But I mean, my best assumption would be that if something like that were to be placed as a mandate upon the city, the easiest path, if it's to catch and keep the cats or just to catch the cats, the most likely path is gonna be an RFP. They're gonna see if there's a private guy that's willing to do it for the money that you're willing to pay the city. So,
Well, that's okay, but
Yeah, so
to
I'm
be ready
saying-
to be ready. and
As
you
you're
might,
looking into
put some
the
contacts out there and, do your,
but what I'm saying is, as you're looking into the legislation, you might wanna consider if there's private people out there, how much they would charge, and
Right.
so on and so forth, so it informs the discussion, and you can make a cost comparison.
right,
Very
we'd
good.
probably have to maybe open up another budget line for it, I'm assuming, or something like that, if we had to do it. So, yeah, everybody's gonna be part of it, nothing we do is free. You know what I mean? There's always a cost to everything that's gotta be done, and then we gotta weigh it out. Is it cost effective? Do we need to do it? Is it the time that we need to do it? Well, I think that time's getting pretty close. We got a lot of people in the city that are complaining about the feral cats. So, God forbid we ever have a rabies outbreak within the feral cat community, we're really gonna have some problems. And, so that's something I don't even wanna think about right now, but, you get a colony of cats, one of them gets rabies, they're all probably gonna get the rabies down the road. Did we prepared for that or anything of that nature? And I know what the answer is, but, we're right now, we're going through this COVID mess right now, and I'd hate to have our own little rabies mess, so I'll just leave it at that.
I've said before that the food makes my job harder. Just encase the food in something.
Right.
Okay.
But we need to, it's been since August or April, and we should have taken care of it.
I did send out to everyone, the president's gonna send out to everyone on the council here that thing from the city of Plattsburgh and how they're dealing with it, so I just suggest everybody take another look at it and
We're kind of ruled just like they are in a way.
yeah.
It's
Mike, can you forward that to the corporation council as well? It's
Yeah,
not
I'm
the
actually, I'm
actual-
gonna send that to the clerk. The
Yeah.
clerk can send it to the people who are on the attendee
And,
list.
and
of
there's
the-
a law professor in there that they talk about. He actually wrote the legislation from Plattsburgh. Maybe the corporation council could contact them, try to contact them. as
Okay.
well.
anything else for the meeting?
I'd like to see if we can move the legislation to call for a public hearing for the zoning, if you guys don't mind. Reason because, the judge is amending that part that we chatted about in committee, and, the part that Frankie DeBrango, was, interested in resolving. Brian agreed to, change it also on the, webpage so everybody can see it prior to our public hearing. And, the judge is, revising the other section about that one-time sale. He's writing it into the law now. So I'd like to see if we can call for a public hearing so we can move that zoning change forward if the council doesn't mind. Yes.
For the, well, I'm mixed up on this. For the convenience stores?
That's a different piece.
No.
This is about the act about that.
Would
So-
you guys- Okay.
So can I ask a question just to verify? So what we talked about, so any zoning property, because I know I was a big proponent to have everybody have a letter sent if something was changing. So what you're saying now, anybody's property that changes, okay, they can, even if it's 5 years down the road and they sell it, they have the one-time,
Sale at the zoning that they have prior to this new adoption of the 2020 zoning. Yep.
okay,
All right.
okay. Yep.
I just have one question on that. That doesn't interfere with spot zoning. We're not,
No.
that would.
No, the zoning plan
That
is
would run
changing.
into that
Nope.
would run into a spot zoning.
The zoning plan is placed, and all we're doing is obligating to the owner for that one-time sale, because they paid so long, like we chatted about, they paid so long for the property zone that the zoning that they had prior to this change.
Well, I agree with it. I just want to make sure, Brian, that's not spot zoning or something.
I wouldn't call it spot zoning.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not familiar with this term, spot zoning. What does that mean?
That's our zoning right now, we're cleaning it up. So-
Okay. Can I ask a question, Mr. Commissioner, about what you just said, what Mr. Miola just said? So the version that you're gonna put on the website is gonna be the one that's cleaned up from what we talked about the last time we all talked about this, correct?
Including your changes, you mean?
Including, well, the changes that I suggested from the prior meeting, and then at the last meeting, I suggested some other changes.
Yes,
So you're incorporating all that into a nice, clean copy?
yes.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. DeBrango, I'm sorry, wait, Jack, one second.
Just real quick, so how do we get it out to the public for public comment?
Well, as soon as Brian Brian, would you have a date that can you have it done immediately, maybe by the end of this week? Because we'd like to call the, public hearing for November 18th, or would you like to call for the first week in December?
Well, the sooner the better, only for the reason is we're getting a lot of things backed up on us here that we haven't moved on. And
Okay.
we need to start cleaning this up.
I will try to have it up on the website by the end of the week.
Thank you very much, Brian. Frankie DeBrango, I'm sorry, wait 1 minute, Art.
we're gonna make the changes from the east side that I requested to you last meeting. Now-
From NMU to UMU.
What's
Yes.
that?
From NMU, neighborhood mixed use, to urban mixed use, UMU.
Correct,
Yes.
thank you.
And
So-
adding dry cleaners as allowed use within the UMU.
Correct. Mark, I'm sorry, you
Did-
had a question?
Yeah, like I said with our meeting earlier, you know, with the regulation, when they should be closing.
Oh, you want to talk about the convenience store legislation? All right, so we're all set with that legislation for zoning?
Actually, I have a question
All right.
on that, for the council and Commissioner Thomas. There was also some areas on Erie Street, South Utica as well. Did any of those get considered in this new one that you're currently revising? I mean, granted, when the public hearing happens, there might be more changes that we need, but
Yeah, we talked about the residential lots on
You're gonna keep it the
Arlington,
same,
at the
right?
Arlington and Oneida, that'll be changed. I believe the city, we did check, and I believe the city does own them.
That's the big sort of park-like thing at the top of Arlington?
right.
Thank you.
What about the St. Elizabeth's property? Is that one we were talking about? That was an issue that we talked about,
Well,
wasn't
that
it?
falls under the one-time sale, right?
Yes, that
Okay.
would fall under one-time sale.
Well, no, hold on, though. That's currently a PDE, correct, Mr. Commissioner?
It is now.
It is now.
Yes, I believe so.
So that PDE would not survive a one-time sale, correct?
It's not supposed to. That's,
We're not gonna preserve any PDEs in the new zoning, correct? It's gonna be an NMU.
It is proposed to be an NMU, yes, like the rest of, most of Genesee Street.
So if we do something where we say a one-time sale preserves the prior zoning,
right.
would we be potentially preserving a PDE in the heart of South Utica?
Under that, unless you excluded it, yes.
I'd like to exclude that. We need to exclude that.
So that's another meeting?
We need to exclude that.
You want to exclude it, no problem.
I want to exclude, I do not want any more PDEs anywhere in my world.
I think you can exclude areas that are currently zoned PD.
Okay, you can do that.
Okay.
The judge right, exclude
Are,
PD.
are there any other PDEs other than, what are the other PDEs currently in South Utica? I know the new Children's Museum, correct?
Yep.
The Kelberman, correct?
Yep.
And then St. Bede's. Anything else?
I believe the Utica Business Park.
Okay. And what's gonna be the new designation of the Utica Business Park then?
Mixed-use campus, I believe.
Okay,
Business park is south. The one where it just
okay,
went
yeah,
in.
I would like to write it in that we don't preserve any PDEs.
Okay, we can change it.
You got that, okay. Somebody said that, okay.
Minority
Basically
leader?
anything.
Minority leader?
What was the government center was on.
Mr. Minority Leader.
I think we should just make the whole city be my personal opinion. It's America. Do what you want.
If I could, I want to co-sponsor this and move it. Convenience stores. And I know we had talked about hours, but could that be an additional ordinance, not necessarily wrapped into this?
Convenience stores for, you know what, convenience store, you're in convenience stores now? Ordinance 14? 14, right? License permits, miscellaneous business regulations.
Yeah.
You got, what's ordinance 10?
That's ordinance 10, yep.
That's the old one. 14 is the updated one.
So we get rid of 10.
Yeah.
This is still written. So, where's
But the hours, I think, was something that Corporation Council and you all were looking into because you all were unsure about if you could restrict operation of business, right, or something like that?
I believe it's an issue that.
Mayor asked me to talk to the judge, which I haven't yet, to talk to Corporation Council to see how we can actually do that. I guess there's something they try to, some previous legislation that they try to get in there. So, since we're talking about it, Judge, on the convenience stores and when they should close and when they should open,
Yeah.
we could order this in the city. We can call the Corporation Council because I guess they have the information, so I was talking to the mayor about it yesterday or Monday. And I guess he has something to give to them.
What are you looking for, an amendment?
Well, something, that we were authorized to actually close the convenience stores at a certain time.
Corporation Council's trying to comment, right now.
Well,
actually.
you
She's
got
on-
the Corporation Council, I think, online, don't you?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you guys, that she's
Why don't
trying
we
to.
see what is Catherine there?
Okay.
Yes, yes.
See what
yes.
Ms. Hartman has to say about that.
All right,
All right.
yes, we can hear you.
Really?
So we spoke with Councilman Wilkinson the other day, and he expressed what I believe is the whole council's desire to regulate the times that convenience stores are open. And I believe the maker supports this too. However, the legislation that we've put forth is really just an ordinance dealing with the licensing. I believe that the council would need to pass, a separate ordinance regulating the time that businesses are open. And there's certainly alternatives to that. I just think we have to get a separate ordinance than the convenience store licensing ordinance that we put forth.
Where's this going?
But, Councilor Hartnett, I mean, wouldn't it just be, when they get their permit, they should know right then and there when they should close and when they should, open, right?
I agree, Councilman. It just has to do with the way we're writing the laws, and this ordinance is just about actually getting a license, but not necessarily regulating the hours or otherwise the operation of the business. I think it just has to be a separate ordinance regulating the hours of business. Which is within the council's authority.
Okay.
You concur with that, Judge?
Well, I don't like to get into that type of discussion. I really believe that when you adopt an ordinance that regulates convenience stores in the city of Utica, and someone's going to apply for a license, I see nothing wrong with a paragraph in there that tells the person what the hours of his operation or her operation is going to be. It maybe should be right at the very beginning, and see whether they know that they can only be open a certain time in the city of
Move this
Utica,
up because
and if that's what you want to do. So I agree that a separate ordinance would do the same thing, but quite frankly, I think that's just more busy work. As long as you're gonna do a convenience store licensing, maybe the very first statement is that convenience stores in the city of Utica operating hours shall be no greater than opening at 7 a.m. and closing no later than 10 p.m. or whatever you have decided.
Without gas.
And I don't think that would violate anything because you have a right to set the hours anyway. So if you're doing a brand new piece of legislation, it's brand new, so you might as well put it in there instead of, one might get lost with the other when you're reviewing all this.
May I?
It'll be right on the application, I think, for the license.
May I?
my thing is that we don't all agree on the timing.
You gotta agree.
And in Oneida Square, they're lining up for synthetic drugs at 6 in the morning. So it's like,
Then it
Don't-
might be in the best interest of the council, if you have a real question on this, to decide amongst yourselves what times you would have a majority of you agree to, under what circumstances, and have a separate ordinance. That I agree to also. Because that way you can be talking about one item only, instead of holding up a whole big licensing procedure for something that you ought to discuss in a separate ordinance, and you can do that quite easily. And maybe you get a consensus of 5 of you. Once you get a consensus, you have an ordinance. And then I agree with Ms. Hartnett, if that's the case, then maybe that would be a better way for you to do it. And I think either way can be done. If you had no disagreement with that today, or with this ordinance, fine. But if you do, then put it in a separate ordinance, and it'll be a very simple ordinance that you've all agreed to. And you should suggest amongst each other what the reasons are of what you think would be working in your district, okay?
Because I'm not opposed to.
That's- So, you do it that way.
So what I'm gathering is, if they have gas pumps, then they can stay up, stay open according to this thing here. I mean, they can stay open later. But if you don't have gas pumps, my recommendation to the common council is to close them at 10, and weekends, Friday, Saturday, I'm okay up, to 11, and then, and they open up at 7 a.m. the next morning. Fast Track has gas pumps. We're not taking anything away from it. It's lighted, it's safe, it's taken care of, they got cameras, they got security. But then you have all these other smaller ones sporadically throughout the thing, and we have a lot of issues with it. With the police department saying they have a lot of calls late at night, constantly sending resources to these places early in the morning. And so with that said, that's my recommendation to common council. They close at 10 o'clock. If they have gas pumps, they can stay open later because we need gas. Fast Track, we can't regulate them, but we can regulate the small stores that are sporadically throughout West, East, South, wherever. So that's my recommendation. 10 o'clock, they shut down. They open up at 7. If they have gas pumps, they got one down there. I hope they got gas pumps there, right? Not taking anything away. They can still get, food, whatever the case may be, or there we go. I mean, we got Hannaford shutting down at 9 o'clock at night. We got Prescott shutting down at 9 o'clock.
No, they're up kind of late.
Councilman, I had suggested this to Chris Lawrence actually as well, for a suggestion to not just tie it to the gas pumps, but also include the sale of alcohol and tobacco. That way, if it's a store that does not have gas pumps, but sells alcohol and tobacco, then impose the regulations. That way, if there's a drugstore that wants to stay open late, like a Walgreens, et cetera, now you're not, I know there's also square footage in there, but I think many of us might agree that the sale of alcohol and tobacco is typically paired with the nefarious activity that is.
So my
Okay.
recommendation then, we'll put that, revisit that in another committee, let the judge come up with a plan on that, let us pass it and get this moving.
I have a separate question on this. I think that that's a good plan. So you'll remember that a couple months back, we tossed around the idea of the council having its own role in deciding when it should be licensed, when these stores should and should not. And we went back and forth with Corporation Counsel, and we were told no, that would not work. What I'd like to suggest, and this would be on the 4th page, that we simply insert as one of the criteria by which a license is given, right? So if you go to page 3, it says issuance of certificates of use and conditional certificates of use. A certificate of use shall be issued when the following conditions have been satisfied. There are currently 7, many subparts to that. I'd like to insert an 8th, which is simply that the Common Council vote upon, not necessarily pass, a non-binding resolution about this placement of a convenience store. And I think that loops us back in terms of us knowing our own districts the best, and it allows us to have a formal say in the process of, and again, not limiting, it doesn't limit the administration in any way. They can do what they will with our advice, but it gives us a formal way in which we're offering up our advice as to where these convenience stores should be located.
Celeste, that sounds good. I'm not writing 50 resolutions for Cornhill.
Yeah, so we already have that big thing that we have, right, Brian? The convenience store, what do you call it? We spent $250,000 last year, brothers.
We don't have to write them.
Did we do something with, we had something with the Culver Ave and, on Culver Ave, Stewart's and Liquor Fuel, they're claiming that they're too close. Within 1,000 feet or something?
Yeah, but that's being eliminated under the new zoning.
It's being eliminated in the zone, right?
Correct.
So, but when the administration gives them a permit, and you're gonna ask them where they can have it, right?
Right, we'll indicate, based on the zoning, what areas of the city they're permitted.
What do they go up?
But I'm not, I mean, just to answer Councilman Moody's point first, we don't have to write them. It can be a standard boilerplate kind of resolution, and it is part of the administration's, when they're, it's just another form that they do. They bring it to us, we vote upon it.
I think the main thing too is to give the planning board hell if they start allowing all these variances. That's how we got the issue in Oneida Square.
It's also how we got an issue in South Utica on Roosevelt, that the ZBA granted granted a variance, 1/10 of a mile from Shinatries where a convenience store just wasn't necessary, and that convenience store is a problem. And I would like to be able to weigh in. I would like, as the counselor representing Third Ward, to weigh in on when and whether we need these convenience stores. I intentionally made this as thin as possible. It doesn't in any way restrict or constrain the administration. It just asks us to formally vote upon it. And I'd like to move that as an amendment. Anybody here going to second that for me?
You can't second an amendment in
No,
pre-meeting
I'm not
conference.
asking
Oh, okay, all right,
for
great.
goodness
Just making
sakes,
sure.
for goodness
Okay,
sakes.
just making sure.
What are you voting on?
No, we're not voting on anything.
No, I want to know from the councilperson.
I am going to suggest
If you're going to vote on whether the convenience store can or cannot be there, or the councilperson, council disapproves on it, you have just disapproved the convenience store. And that's what you've done. So, either you just put it in different language, and when you put in that word and we vote on it, that implies that's not non-binding. Because a vote usually has some sort of connotation to it, that there's a strict restriction there. Now, I don't know that I can't speak for Ms. Hartnett.
Well, actually, she's trying to request the floor
I'd like
now,
to know
but
what she
can't
thinks
see
about
her.
that.
Yeah, so, Corporation Counsel, you have the floor. And actually, this is Councilman Williamson's meeting still, but you have the floor.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, the reason why it would not be appropriate for the council to take a vote on every individual convenience store license application is because the criteria are set out to obtain a lease, are set out very clearly in the law. And if those criteria are met, we are obligated to provide that license. When the council weighs in without any prescribed criteria, especially, they don't have the authority generally to make these sort of executive decisions. But when they start voting up or down without the prescribed criteria, then you get into a problem of unequal enforcement and equal protection issues. And I don't know that a law like that would survive even if it is non-binding. It would also certainly delay the business of applicants for these licenses and for the clerk's department that is considering these applications. So I would strongly advise the council against adopting this amendment to the law.
All right, Councilman Williamson, it's your meeting. What's next on this? Who's got the floor?
All right, so we got enough to push this as is, move forward, as is right now. We'll go with it.
Are you talking about, okay.
Talking about the neighborhood retail certificate of use.
Okay?
So wait,
And then we'll do an ordinance for the other thing, we'll talk about it.
Number 14.
And then if we've got to amend down the road for her, what her idea.
I thought we were talking about the other thing. So we're including that, the cost, the fees, the 250, all that stuff that you guys talked about in the committee meeting has not even been touched yet.
I thought this is the 14 is the updated one. 10 is the old one.
Correct.
Well, 14 rather. 14 is the one we're passing. 10 is the older one.
Excuse me, are we still going with the fees? I thought that was an issue that we weren't talking.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I'm trying to make
Right.
sure we are looking at the correct one because we've just been talking about it generally.
Right.
So wait a second, it's not number 10.
Right. We're talking about 14 right now.
It says UED right on top.
200 every 2 years. That's not.
They reduced the fee.
Yeah, we reduced the fee.
We did.
Reduced from 500 to 200.
Okay, all right, that's all I want to make sure, okay.
So everybody's good with the 14, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Would you like to also sponsor it, Councilman Moody? Councilman Moody would like to put his name on it. I don't know if the rest of the council.
I will.
Is
I'll
this-
put my name on
is
it.
this a-
Yeah.
Let Delvin read it.
We're not gonna read the whole thing.
No, no.
No, just summarize, please. Is this a
I
full,
got it.
is this a full council sponsorship?
I got 14.
Okay, I'm assuming it's full council.
Full council.
Isn't there a motion or something on this already?
We're still in pre-meeting conference, Judge.
Isn't there a motion on the 14th?
You got nothing.
I try not to miss one that.
They were talking.
Really, it's
No,
just 14.
there's no legislation.
It's just 14 now.
It was just what we took out of committee. There was no new legislation.
I found 14, but there was 10 in the packet. Yes.
Yes, because 10 and 14 are in committee, currently.
I got legislation committee to whole packet, I got it.
Exactly.
I also have,
Oh, so what are we taking?
I got legislation for public safety committee packet. And that's it.
And then you're taking out.
Okay. Yeah, those are all the packets.
These are all packet with it.
All right, so question, I just need an update because I'm keeping track of what we need to do on the actual floor. What are the current things we expect to move on the floor out of committee currently?
I am going to bring my garbage and refuse thing out.
Yep, got one.
Garbage.
Now, the garbage recipe, are we putting a price on that? for-
Well, hang on, let's just get a list here, because we just went over a lot of stuff. And then we can talk, I need this, otherwise we cannot drag the meeting.
Choose for that, there's no packet here, I have 3 packets.
Exeter committee one.
That's because there is no,
There's-
there is no packet today, because we have no new
You
legislation.
gotta take it out of committee, put it in
So
a
those
packet.
are the packets.
There's no new legislation.
No, that's what we've been trying to explain.
You're
Yeah.
making the package.
You haven't even got to the meeting.
I know.
We're not in a meeting yet.
All right, so as I was asking, Minority Leader, can we list the things that we're currently decided that we're pulling out of committee?
So 14's coming out.
Okay, 14,
Okay,
which is convenient, of course.
all right?
Celeste,
That's coming out. The enforcement of New York State laws, resolution number 11 has been fixed and approved by, Councilman DeBrango. We ever got the new one, number 11?
Yep.
We got the new one, number 11? All right, the lack of enforcement, okay, that's done. An ordinance amending section, city code by additional section 2-31-8.
Um,
we're just calling for a public hearing. It's number 15.
That's coming out?
No, that's staying in committee.
That's staying in committee.
Yep,
All right, feral cats is staying in committee.
correct.
Neighborhood notification, is that coming out?
No.
Did you want to rescind it? Because
All
you
right,
just want to leave it in there until you.
The only question I have on refuse and garbage,
Yep.
I like your stuff, but they're supposed to give me a fine table. They, first time, we have to go back the second time, how much, the third time, fourth time?
We can attach a fee schedule later on, Councilman, if you would
I'd
like.
this,
All right, let's move along.
the
then.
Commissioner
Alright.
of Codes has asked to have this so that he can clean up some properties in his sites.
All right,
I'd like to give him that power.
I wanna put that in, all right, but yeah, we'll do it tonight, all right?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Just one question. Are you gonna make an amendment to that?
Yes, I'm gonna make one small amendment to that, which is, so we're talking here about the garbage refuse, and I am gonna make a very small amendment, which is at 22273 enclosures. At the beginning of that paragraph, I'm gonna simply insert, at the discretion of the Utica Department of Codes Enforcement, comma, the storage of any large pieces of metal on one's property would require an enclosure. So I'm inserting that phrase, so I'll be making that amendment on the floor, at the discretion of the Utica Department of Codes Enforcement.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, all right, Councilwoman McNeil, you wanna take out resolution to create compliance on the city of Utica?
She didn't tell us anything prior, so I'm pretty
No,
sure
this is stuff that's just been in committee for a long time. This is in our packet.
I'm just going right down the line.
All right, okay, good. So no, the answer is
Go down
no.
the line.
All right.
Ordinance establishes zone regulations for the city of Utica, that's going out for, that's number 9.
Well, no, that's the
That's
whole
staying
thing.
in committee, that one.
That has to stay in committee.
The other one, calling for a public hearing, is number 15. I'd like to remove for committee.
Okay. So number 15, coming out.
And the date for the public hearing would be November 18th, if the council is okay. It's our next council meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
And refuse garbage is coming out, neighborhood notification, dated 6/3/2020, ordinance 1. Mr. Pettit.
Oh, my mic was off, I apologize.
Act never notification clause, Councilman Friend.
I'm leaving that in.
Okay, leave that in, good. All right, we're good. We got about 3 or 4 now.
We got 4.
We got a handful.
Whatever
We
you
got
guys
half a
qualify.
bushel.
What's that?
Nothing.
We'll read into the record as we go along.
Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, because there's no, whatever you guys want to pull out of committee, you pull out of committee.
Yep, and everybody knows what they're gonna be doing after thing. I'll do this one,
I'll do the, call for a public hearing.
call public hearing. You're doing the license there, Del?
Yeah,
You're
yep.
doing your record.
I am.
Okay.
All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I will be calling the main meeting to order in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
flushing season goes up.
Okay, it is 7:19. I'm going to call this meeting of the City of Utica Common Council to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
McNeil, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Moody, Beatrice, Williamson, Lemetico, DeBrango, Galimi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first order of business, public hearing. We have no pieces of legislation this evening, so the public hearing is now closed. Second order of business, reading of the minutes from the previous meeting. The minutes have been posted on Ecode 360.
I'd
Does
like to
anyone have a
move to
vote?
dispense with the reading, please.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second from Williamson. The motion was from Friend. Any opposed to dispensing with the reading of the minutes from the previous meeting? Okay. Do we have any communications from the mayor?
No communications.
Do we have any cash reports and any other miscellaneous communications?
No, we do not.
Okay, next order of business, reports from the city officers. Assistant Chief Noon.
Nothing from the fire.
Thank you very much. Deputy Chief Noonan.
Nothing to
Commissioner Thomas.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Phillips.
I just want to invite all of you guys to the initial Police Athletic League event on Monday. It was supposed to be at Cornerstone Church. It's been moved to the Center for Development, which is the vet center right here, where the YMCA used to be. It's Monday from 3 to 6. So far we got like 26, 27 kids. Because of COVID, we had to get creative in the activities they could play. But they're gonna play video games with the police there, and they're also gonna talk a little bit about, you know, police community relations and different topics that the people that are running the program gave them. It's the first time the city's doing one, as far as I can tell. There's some other things that happened but weren't quite a PAL. So I think it's a big thing, and the kids all win prizes. They get Xboxes. So I know the majority leader, it's in your district, so I wanted you to be aware of it, and I wanted everybody else to be aware. Monday from 3 to 6 at the Center for Development.
Mr. President, I'd like to, I know you're taking monetary donations. If anybody'd like to donate for some of the trophies or gifts that these kids are going to be receiving?
Yeah, so the members of the community have been generous, one of which, and he probably wouldn't like me to say this, is you know, the Chiefs, the New York State Chiefs Association donated $500 for a prize, because the city can't pay for prizes. We're not going to pay for things to give away to children. So we asked people for donations. Lindsay Foundation has helped, and yeah, if anybody wants to donate, it's our way of giving the kids a reward for participating, being there all 4 years, all 4 weeks. It's a 4-week program, conducting themselves appropriately, and we want to give them prizes.
Can I ask council, would you guys all like to chip in, donate something from the council? $25 a piece person or something like that, or whatever
It's
you
fine.
want?
If we could maybe put it in a check form and then give it to, can we do that, or?
You can make it out to the foundation, and we're writing one check to
Okay.
pay for it.
Yeah, let Joe know, and then we'll square up with you. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Everybody else.
We appreciate you guys, and we appreciate
Whoever
if you
wants to
show
give me
up.
money,
I mean, not
put it
just, it goes on for 4 weeks every Monday from 3 to 6.
Could I play video games? That's what I
You
want.
can play video games,
All right.
and the whole point, right? So the police are one thing, but one of the points is there's children here from all parts of the city. It's not Cornhill, it's not, you know, West Utica, it's the whole city. And so the point is, it starts with 25 kids. We expect that number to build as the program goes on, and we want them not just to be familiar with police, but actors in city government, because you're trying to get a new generation civically involved. So, and this isn't basketball, so Councilman Lemetico doesn't have to worry about me kicking his tail. Okay.
Can I make a request? Could we get an email invitation to this? Otherwise, I won't make it onto my calendar.
Okay.
Can somebody Maybe David and Melissa could just send out an email to the council reminding them of the time and place. Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner?
That's it.
Thank you.
I did donate, so I just wanna let you know.
Jack was one of the generous people. He pledged to donate to the program. He's been dealing with Stephanie Highland, who's really running the program, so I didn't know if she actually had cashed in on his check. But
We just all donated now.
All right, we're gonna, if we could please, take care of that after the meeting, it would be greatly appreciated. We're moving to petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First District, Council Member and Majority Leader Maria McNeil, you have the floor. Do you have anything this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. All good with you.
Thank you very much. Second District, Council Member Burmaster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing at this time, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Third District, Councilperson Celeste Friend.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll make every effort to be quick. We had a lot of I don't know what we want to call it, but a lot of activity amongst the council and the administration about the complete streets and the test, and then there was an ordinance. And I want to say here that that Councilman Lemetico was right to bring that ordinance. I voted against it. I now think he was right to bring it. I appreciate his dogged defense of the council's right to exercise its own authority, and I appreciate his defense of our rights. And so I just wanted to say that publicly, given that publicly at our most recent meeting, I in fact voted otherwise. I had a lot to digest, and I've digested it, and I really do appreciate, and that's quite sincere. I also, so I really do appreciate Councilman Lemetico's efforts there. I also really do think that complete streets ought to be implemented on the length of Genesee that most people, or a lot of people I think, object to, the length that runs from Cottage Place up to Oriskany. And I think that the council ought to use its power that has now been successfully defended to in fact implement complete streets there. I think there are lots of good reasons, and we can discuss this more in the coming months. Maybe we could have a big committee meeting about that. I just want to say two things about that, though. There's a great deal of money at stake, both in terms of bicycle tourism dollars that we are going to lose if we do not have complete streets with bicycle lanes that connect to the new Empire Trail. Thousands of people ride across New York State every year. Tens of thousands ride through and from all over the world. Bicycle tourists have a lot of money, and they literally pass by Utica because there is no easy, safe way for them to get from the Canalway Trail down into downtown Utica. Sidewalk, bicycle lanes in the roads would solve that. So I am really in favor of that. But it's also the case that we're going to be losing out on federal, state, and perhaps county money if we do not implement complete streets in accordance with the policy that was passed by the council in 2016. So I'm really for that. Most fundamentally, though, and I know that this is really counterintuitive, people are not going to believe me yet, but I will eventually convince you. Genesee, the traffic on Genesee, using Genesee as a street could be greatly improved by reducing it from the 4 terrible narrow lanes that it currently is down to 3 lanes, 2 travel lanes and a turning lane. Everybody always talks about it being reduced to 2 lanes. It would actually be reduced to 3 lanes, and it would radically improve the flow of traffic. I have talked to, in the last 2 weeks, probably a dozen people on this subject. So I will be, as I say, bringing this back to the council. I think that we ought to ordain that section of Genesee from Cottage Place all the way up to Oriskany, that we implement a complete streets policy there. It would also be, and I'm not necessarily thinking about the 2012 plan from the mayor, which I have on a map here. I'm not thinking of any hardscaping. I don't like the idea of a hard median running down the middle of the road. I'm talking purely about striping. This can be done just by the application of paint, and we could radically improve that section of road. So that's all I had to say on complete streets tonight. You will hear more about that from me down the road. But now I would like to introduce ordinance number 1. This is an ordinance entitled Article 4, Refuse and Garbage. New section to section 22273 are set forth herein. and I'm going to, it's a long ordinance, so I'm just going to paraphrase it. What we're doing here is that we are giving the Department of Codes Enforcement some new enforcement mechanisms against residents who allow all sorts of garbage and scrap metal and wood, et cetera, to pile up in their yards, much to the detriment of their neighbors' property values and things like that. So I'll just read the first part. So whereas in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the city of Utica and to protect the property values and safe enjoyment of all property in the city of Utica, there is a need to enact legislation for the purpose to control the accumulation of refuse, materials, and garbage upon one's property to the detriment of other property owners in the city of Utica. Whereas the Common Council for the city of Utica does hereby a new section 27273, Article 4, entitled Accumulation and Storage of Rubbish and Garbage. Be it ordained that Section 22273 of the Utica City Code is hereby amended to be entitled Article 4, Accumulation and Storage of Refuge and Garbage, and the new section added to Section 22273. So, and it lists, there is a list of the various kinds of rubbish and garbage which we are going to disallow people from building up in their yards. And then at the end, the penalties, if a person, I'm now reading towards the end of this ordinance, if a person is convicted of having violated a section of the code herein, there shall be a minimum fine of $100 and or 10 days in jail, or both if the fine is not paid within 30 days of said conviction. If it becomes necessary for the city to correct a violation herein for failure of the owner of the property to do so, then in that event, any cost reasonably incurred by the city shall become a debt on the property, and if not paid within 90 days, will be added to the city tax bill for said property. I would like to make one amendment a little bit up above where it says enclosures at 222734.2. I would like to add the phrase before that sentence.
Hang on 1 second. Before we make the motion to amend, can we have a second to this? Okay, Miola's the second.
I
Okay.
don't think we have to make a second
This
when
is-
somebody brings someone out to the floor. I
If you
think
would
that's
like to make a motion to amend, you
the
need to
amendment
you
part,
need to
but not that
second.
she's bringing it out to the floor.
All
I
right,
got
look,
you.
I'm elected to be the parliamentarian. I'm telling you how parliamentary rules work. Please just go along with it. Thank you, Miola, for the second. Motion to amend, please.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend. I would be adding the phrase, at the discretion of the Utica Department of Codes Enforcement, comma, the storage of any large pieces of metal on one's property would require an enclosure where such accumulated metal will not be visible on said property. So I'm simply adding that first phrase, at the discretion of the Utica Department of Codes Enforcement, comma.
Councilman Miola, you're the second on that. Okay, is anyone opposed to that amendment before we vote on this legislation?
No.
Anyone opposed? McNeil, are you opposed? Okay, we're good. No one's opposed. All right, so now the legislation is on the floor for a vote as amended. You've already read it. Your votes.
Nine E's adopted.
Thank you. And
I'm all
Councilwoman
done.
McNeil is voting verbally as she's. Thank you.
I'm all
Councilwoman.
done, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. 4th District and President Pro Temp, Councilman Miola, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to pull from committee the resolution calling for a public hearing for adoption of new zoning plan and map for the city of Utica. It's
Okay.
resolution number 15.
It is on the screen before us.
Thank you very much, sir. There has been many amendments to this new zoning plan. We had amendments by Councilwoman Celeste Friend, Councilman Frankie DeBrango, and myself. Reading all those amendments into the record, we'd like to just make sure that those amendments are there. Mr. Brian Thomas stated to us very clearly that those amendments will be posted on our website so people of the city of Utica can see the amendments that we made. One particular amendment that I was interested in is the grant of selling ship from one zoning to the other. If an owner has the property right now, the zoning is retained until he sells it. And the next new buyer, of course, is aware of the new zoning as the new zoning of 2020, the new zoning plan. So just to make it easy for everybody, it's an easy transition, and the property owners who paid for the zoning, that they had the business property or whatever they had, will remain until the sale of the property. Mr. President, I would like to amend make a motion to amend.
Is there a second for the, okay, we've got multiple seconds. I'm gonna go with Beatrice, and now the motion to amend, yes.
Mr. President, I'd like to motion to amend, to be it resolved, the Common Council will conduct a public hearing on a proposed citywide zoning ordinance and city zoning map, 7 PM, November 18th, 2020.
Any opposed to the amendment to change the date to, November
18th,
18th,
2020.
2020 at 7 PM? No one's opposed. So the amendment passed. It's up for a vote if you'd like to.
I'd like to just be it resolved, this is just a written record that the public, we are going to advertise for a
Yeah.
public hearing in accordance to General Cities Law. Need the vote, sir.
All right, your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President, I'm all set.
Councilwoman McNeil? Thank you. All right. And then I just want to make a note about the public hearing. When that is advertised, people will be able to communicate via email, but also if they do email the clerk, and this is going to be in the announcements as they are for the public hearings, people can contact the clerk and can speak during the public hearing time live to the council. We could dial them into this WebEx based on the public hearing law, okay?
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
President.
thank you. Anything else this evening?
No, sir, I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you. Fifth District, Councilman Moody, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to just speak briefly to encourage people. I know we have some youth council folks listening and some other young people. I want to continue to remind folks that in our democracy, there are always winners and losers, and I want people to be encouraged to continue to be involved and engaged. I was very optimistic and excited about, regardless of how things end the next few weeks or days, that there are so many young people voting. And when I went to the when I went to the polls to vote myself, I seen a lot of people going up to the table with having made mistakes on their ballot. And they were a little bit, discouraged, but the Board of Elections was able to help them. The folks that work in the polls were able to help them. And so what it showed to me that this was their first time voting, and so many people voted. And so I just want to encourage the city of Utica and those listening to not be discouraged about their political and civic participation. We're going to pull this corner store legislation tonight, and I do want to make a comment on it. I think it's the right legislation to protect our city, protect our communities. I think it will provide greater teeth. There's been some concern I've heard on the radio and others that it would hurt mom and pop retail businesses. I think the legislation does none of that. I think it does, though, give the city teeth in order to go after corner stores and neighborhood retail facilities that are having a negative impact on our area. So I think this is the right way to go.
May after you do move that, may I request the floor to state something prior to the consideration of that legislation, as when I get to the remonstrances, when I will be able to speak, it will be after that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Continue, sorry.
And also, yeah, that's going to be full council. And I guess I'll bring it out now and then make my other remarks. So I want to move Ordinance 14, reading in part, that is full council, reading in part ordained Chapter 2-14 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Utica, as amended, is hereby further amended to read as follows: Chapter 214, licenses, permits, and miscellaneous business regulations. Article 14, neighborhood retail certificate of use. And I'm just going to read the purpose, section 2-14-336 purpose. The purpose of this article is to establish regulatory controls to ensure that certain businesses are operated in accordance with law and do not have a negative impact upon surrounding residential neighborhoods or do not endanger the health, safety, and welfare of persons in the city of Utica.
All right, Miola was the second on that. Were there any amendments or discussion from the floor? Okay. As the person who moved this, may I state something prior to the vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Basically, the statements I wanted to make are coming from me as just a general council person, not council president. This has nothing to do with parliamentary rule. The purpose of this legislation, as it came down, was basically the sum of many years of trying to rein in nefarious activities in corner stores that were habitually selling drugs, fencing goods, etc. Now, obviously, the intent of this legislation is to rein that in. That is good. Now, the point system that's included in this legislation absolutely would do that. The point system basically is almost like the certificate of use is almost like a driver's license. And if passed, the point system was passed in its own right, would allow the city to associate points with certain crimes that store owners would commit and allow the city to remove the certificate of use. Essentially, that piece achieves the goal of this legislation. Now, all of the other pieces of this legislation, which make it more difficult for store owners to open in the first place, and also charge yearly fees to stay open, creates, and this is my opinion, more regulation that's unnecessary that is not needed to enforce the point system and reach the intended goal, which was simply to figure out a way to close stores, not a way to make it harder to open stores up in the first place. Because if they have a clean record when they want to open, they're going to be able to open anyways. So that's I'm respectfully asking the council to consider modifying this legislation and trimming it down so that we just pass the point system, because it would achieve the overall goal without increasing the regulation and red tape on store owners that otherwise would not be participating in nefarious activity in the first place. That's all. Thank you. So if nothing else, your votes.
Nine E's adopted.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman, for casting your vote via the WebEx.
I'll say this because I don't want to have to clarify my vote later on once I give up the floor. The council is going to bring forth a resolution lack of the enforcement of laws in New York State, and I am going to vote yes for that. I'm going to tell you the only reason I'm voting yes. Only reason I'm voting yes is because when the deputy chief said that there are certain instances where unintended action can result in harm to an officer that is not yet necessarily classified as assault of an officer, I think that is something to look at and review. And on that basis is the only reason why I'm going to vote yes for this. I don't buy the narrative that folks are just attacking officers here in the city of Utica for no reason whatsoever. I think that across the country, you have seen a greater hostility, but if particular persons are going to say that we need to have a localized conversation about police reform, then I think we need to have a localized conversation with regard to what's happening in Utica and not buying into the hysteria or the challenges of another city. We need to look at what's happening here in the city of Utica, and so I don't buy into that. Now, I do believe that there is a greater hostility toward police officers in the current climate of America today, but I don't think that is entirely unfounded. I think there is just a long history that people have responded to in different ways. Notwithstanding that, I in no way support the assault of officers. I in no way support officers being hurt while trying to protect our city. I don't buy into that narrative, but I also stand behind supporting the men and women that protect us and keep us safe every day. So with that, I'm going to vote yes, but want it to be clear and known, particularly to my constituents, that I do not buy the narrative that people are just outright trying to attack officers. I yield the floor, Mr. President.
Thank you. 6th District, Councilman Joe Beatrice, you have the floor.
Yes, the only thing I have is I want to thank Legislator Leone for, he shares my area with me. I want to thank him for coming to the meeting. He also jumped on and donating to the the police and youth fund. And I want to thank all my fellow council people who donated. And I got money for you guys, and hope to see you on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Council at Large and Minority Leader, Mark Williamson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring out resolution number 11.
All right, please, if you could read into the record the new version
I got it.
because the one I have on the
Yeah, I'm gonna
computer
make
is
an
not.
amendment to it anyway, so,
To the new version as well?
yes.
Okay. All right, so when you make the motion to move this, please read the one you got on the paper.
You ready?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Lack of enforcement of laws in New York State. Whereas the state of New York has a statute that protects the public law enforcement, encourages the enforcement of the law, and discourages and makes it unlawful to obstruct the administration of justice by public officials. It is 195.00 of New York State Penal Law in various sections, and whereas the law of the state of New York, section 205.30 makes it a crime to resist a lawful arrest. This council hereby agreeing to research in section 205.30 and looking into the increase of penalties for resisting arrest. Be it resolved that the New York State Legislature and the Governor of New York shall, that's where my amendment, scratch should and shall, S-H-A-L-L, review the laws of concerning willful obstruction of justice by individuals and public officials, as well as the law of resisting arrest, to increase the penalties for the same in regard to public officials who blatantly refuse to enforce the laws and ordinances of the state and public bodies they represent, be subject to immediate charge and recall for dereliction of official duties. So basically, this is more about the resisting arrest. Right now, that's up to 1 year confinement, or up to $1,000. I think the New York State Legislature and the governor, if we're going to reform the police department, we should reform these laws.
Councilman Williamson, I believe you have the incorrect one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one you gave.
Well, there's two. There was two. I apologize.
This is the one you gave.
No, are you talking about the term shall versus should?
No.
They kept,
They shortened it up. I got the shortened one.
Is this the correct one?
I got the same one he had. This is the shorter one.
This the newest one.
He
The
read,
deputy clerk was reading along with you, and so there's two whereases, and one be it resolved.
he read into the record, Mr. President, so it's okay.
I'll read mine. I got the same one.
Good, then we're good.
Yep.
I think, you know what it is, he summarized the last paragraph.
Yes,
That's
he
what it
did.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just summarized the last paragraph.
I'd like the motion for
Okay.
a second, and if,
So, hold on, yeah, is there, are you the second on this?
I'd
Point
like
of
the motion, Mr.
clarification.
President, I'd like the motion for the second, and if the council doesn't mind, full council on this, also this piece?
All right, so you're the second, but then he's
guys
gonna make
not?
his motion to amend.
No full council, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Point of clarification.
All right, my amendment is.
Hold on a second. The first thing we need to do is get a second for this that's moved. All right, we got the second from Beatrice. All right, Councilman Moody, you have the floor.
Shall seems like a term of action, and should seems like a term of consideration. I don't think the shall means that we are instructing the governor to. Right?
Considering it's encapsulated in a resolution, which is only a
It
request.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
moved.
all right.
Yeah, all right, cool.
All right. And
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna make the Democratic governor do what he's supposed to.
All right, well, regardless,
Okay,
all right,
that
so
was-
now let's, hold on, order on the floor. Now
Holy
please
crap.
make your motion to amend.
Want to go that route?
Councilman Williamson, motion to amend.
Don't let me go crazy.
270.
Motion to amend?
Make a motion to amend.
Okay. And you would like to insert shall in between the
Shall
words
review
legislature?
the laws.
leg-
I was rudely interrupted a few minutes ago.
You need a, s-
All right,
All right? Review the laws concerning the willful obstruction of justice by individuals and public officials, as well as resisting arrest, so increase the penalties for the same in regard to a public official who blatantly refused to enforce the laws and ordinance of the state of public bodies they represent. Be subject to an immediate charge of recall, dereliction of official duties.
I do not have that copy.
yeah, Mark, you're reading the wrong copy right
I do
now.
not have that. That is not what I have.
So hold on a second. No one say anything. I'm reading the one that is on the floor, and then we're gonna amend the one that's on the floor. This is what it says on this particular piece that I had before me. All right, whereas the state of New York has a statute that protects the public and law enforcement and encourages the enforcement of the law and discourages and makes it unlawful to obstruct the administration of justice by the public and public officials. It is 195.00 of the New York State Penal Law in its various sections. And whereas law in New York State in section 205.30 makes it a crime to resist a lawful arrest, this council hereby agrees to researching section 205.30 and looking into an increase of penalties for resisting arrest.
That's the one I just read.
Be it, hang on, hold on. Be it resolved that the Common Council for the City of Utica believes it would be in the best interest of this state that the governor and state legislator review the law resisting arrest 205.30 of the penal law and also section 195 as to the responsibilities of public officials to ensure that all laws designed to protect the citizens of the state of New York be enforced pursuant to section 195.00. That's the piece that's on the floor and was seconded. Would you like to amend that specific piece? Tell me what that amendment will be.
Yes.
Okay.
Instead of take out should, strike should, put shall.
All right, so here's, hold on, because I think there's just some papers floating around.
This is the one you handed me.
That the governor and state legislature shall review the law of resisting arrest. That is the amendment. Is there a second? We have a second from Beatrice. Any opposed to that amendment? Any opposed?
Mr. President, Councilman Mark Williamson read the revised copy into the record. Does anybody disagree with what he read into the record?
Well,
Okay.
Hold on, because the clerk had a disagreement with which one was typed up, so we need to get this in order so that it's...
Well, how does he have it if she didn't type it?
Please. If we'd like the minutes and the legislation to be reflected appropriately. All right.
It just should and shall, right?
Okay. Okay.
It's not written on mine. Strike out the first and last paragraph. Mr. President, did yours say the city of Utica, the town council of the city of Utica?
Yeah.
Ours does not say that.
Okay.
Councilman Mark Williamson read into the record. I think we should just adopt it and...
Well, I'm just trying to clarify this because the clerks have multiple copies up here. Okay. So the one that was read into the record is written here. Mark, you read it into the record. Thank you.
And all we need is to vote on it. If you
Now,
don't-
where would you like the shall? Just state it and we'll pass that motion.
You shouldn't put in the word shall. I was asked to clean up this piece of legislation and amend it. And I wrote an amendment. And the amendment is what was read to you by the clerk as amended. Now, I was under the impression that you wanted me to amend it in a form that I thought would be presentable to the legislature. And I don't like the word shall. I wrote this that said that the Common Council of the City of Utica believes it would be in the best interest of the state that the governor and state legislature review the law of resisting arrest 20530 penal law and section 195.00 as to the responsibility of public officials to ensure that all laws designed to protect the citizens of the state of New York be enforced pursuant to section 195.00 of the penal law. So you're asking the legislature and the state to take a look at 20530 and 195 and see if that really is the way that law should stay in view of the fact that you think that 20530 needs a little more attention and 195.00 needs more attention to make sure that when people do things that are unlawful, that the responsible public officials act and not remain dormant. And I think that was the intent when you originally approached me on that, and that's the way I wrote it after being requested by Mr. Councilman DeBrango to put it in a form.
Right.
I thought I'd put it in a form. We're not making any demands on the legislature. We're suggesting.
And here's what I need everyone to do, just because the deputy clerk did listen to what was read into the record. It is not the exact same thing what was read into the record that anyone's, if you, Mark Williamson, and Councilman Frank DeBrango could review this piece quickly, right now, which is,
There it is.
That's
All
Okay.
typed up.
thing that someone
Yes.
gave?
okay. It's all right.
Huh?
Yeah, well, that's what was typed up.
All this work for not binding
The same
No,
thing.
that's
I
fine.
typed-
Hang on,
I-
hang on,
I typed
hang on.
that up. That
No,
is
no,
that.
everyone go back to their seats.
Okay.
I know
Well,
right
it's
in
still
the-
Mark Williamson.
Right,
If he-
people wanna be on it.
That's fine, but we're not there yet. All right, let's just make sure.
Oh, see, I didn't see this. I saw this. This is what was handed to me. Okay. All right, so, guys,
Yes,
Start all
please.
over again?
Yes, 100%. Go for it.
all right.
All right.
I would like to start all over again.
All right, so all the
Okay,
motions are currently rescinded? Okay, we're moving again. Oh,
All right.
can you clear the votes, please? Thank you.
I'm voting on the one that I have.
Oh, sorry.
All right, please read it in the record. Thank you.
All right, now we got this all straight, all right? Lack of enforcement of laws in New York State. Whereas the state of New York has a statute that protects the public law enforcement and encourages the enforcement of the law, discourages and makes it unlawful to obstruct the administration of justice by the public and public officials. It is 195.00 of New York State penal law and its various sections. And whereas the law in New York State in section 205.30 makes it a crime to resist a lawful arrest. This council hereby agrees to researching section 205.30 and looking into increase of penalties for resisting arrest. Be it resolved that the Common Council for the City of Utica believes it would be in the best interest of this statute, of this state, that the governor and the state legislature review the law of resisting arrest 205.30 of the penal law and also section 195.00 as to the responsibilities of public officials to ensure that all laws designed to protect the citizens of the state of New York be enforced pursuant to section 195.00.
We have a second
And-
for Miola.
So let me give my back history on this a little bit, since Councilman Moody did. All right, there is a civil unrest going on in this country, and there's our cities out there that are allowing mob rules and destroying public property. And they're sitting back and letting it happen. And that's what I want to look at in resisting arrest. Resisting arrest could be just pulling their arms back. Or if it's a 30-minute melee where our police officers are getting hurt, they're getting incapacitated, and they're losing their livelihood because someone is resisting arrest. So what this is for, we got a new legislature out there now. We got people that's been newly elected. I hope they take this on board and really look at it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Levetico, I believe you would like the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make sure that I get my name on this.
Okay.
I fully back this legislation, being someone who's been involved in law enforcement for 30 years. I've witnessed myself, been part of actions in which people have been taken into custody and fought, being taken into custody, actually had gotten hurt. And I think this is a powerful statement that we're delivering by the council here. And I look forward to casting my vote of yes.
Okay.
And I will also make sure that I'd like to sponsor this as well.
All right, the clerk already
Thank you.
got that. Thank you. Anyone else?
We got full council on it or no? No.
No, no
Huh?
one wants.
Who's
If
not
anyone
voting?
would like to add their name, please request it. Okay?
I don't have no issue speaking to why I'm not going full council on this. Unabashedly.
All right, your votes. Thank you. Maria?
McNeil, yeah.
Thank you.
90's adopted.
Motion, well, actually, I would like to just at least give them, no second yet. Councilman Lomedico, you have the floor.
I have nothing to say. I think we talked enough today.
right.
I'd like to end this. Thank you.
Councilman DeBrango.
Nothing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.